This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with James O'Brien.
2 minutes after 10 is the time, and I suppose the world this morning is divided into two. People who are completely conscious and aware of the significance of the commentator and activist Charlie Kirk, and people who were not. And then, of course, there are some of us who sit somewhere between those two stools. But I mention the polarities because it's not actually about whether or not you sympathise with his views, some of which, and I'm on a bit of a crash course this morning, which you're going to help with, some of which were pretty hideous. It's about whether or not you fully appreciated how significant he was, and indeed the reasons for his significance. 3 minutes after 10 is the time. A very good morning to you. There's a couple of things I don't understand. And actually, when I was coming into work and I had my earphones in and I was listening to some commentary and I was looking at some of the coverage online, I really did presume that they knew who had undertaken this act of hideous, murderous violence and why. Up to and including Donald Trump's comments and the mention of martyrdom. At that point, you presume they must know why. Now, it seems to me highly likely that if and when they identify the killer and explore his motives, the motive is going to have been in large part informed by what Charlie Kirk stood for. But surely, again, it's one of those mornings where I wonder whether I'm going mad. Surely you wait until you're sure before you actually draw conclusions about what has motivated this murder. Surely you need to know why it was undertaken before you can make comments about martyrdom or truth or freedom or free speech, or indeed even try and turn it into some opportunity to attack the left, some of whom, the idiots, will not be offering unequivocal condemnation and sympathy for an act of political violence, for a political assassination. I suppose there is a bar somewhere above which you can offer tacit or even explicit approval of murder. But goodness me, I don't. Well, as it stands, at 5 minutes after 10 this morning, this young man seems to have been nowhere near that bar to me. A couple of things that have already been pointed out include his observations, his recorded observations, that death is the price you pay for the gun laws that he very enthusiastically approved of. And you know, there's a grim, a poignant irony to that sort of contribution, and also some qualified commentary on the apparent nature of the assassination and the likelihood that it would be somebody who really, really knew what they were doing, given even Ian Duncan Smith, drawing upon his own military experience, I've seen commenting this morning on the evidence of expertise in this place. But I often feel these days, and remember that I do this for a living, I often feel these days that there are two universes and you're never entirely sure which one it is that you inhabit. Who was Charlie Kirk? 0345 6060 973 is the number that you need. Who was he? And listen, I'm not completely ignorant. I have been surprised by the scale of the response. I knew the name. I have seen some clips. I wouldn't necessarily have been able to say, that is Charlie Kirk. I would have said, that is the guy who I have seen getting kind of owned by young students. But that's the nature of my algorithms, I suppose, is that I would see the clips of him being challenged on his attitudes to everything from race and sexuality to abortion, and not thriving. But he obviously has an entire catalogue of examples of where he has thrived and succeeded, because otherwise he wouldn't have been, I have learned this morning, such a key ally of Donald Trump. So please don't presume complete ignorance. Well, actually, feel free to presume complete ignorance on my part. I'll tell you something else that you may not be aware of. Quite a lot of dads, I think, and mums this morning, including the centrist dads, including the centrist dads, will be learning just how much their own teenage children knew about this guy, regardless of their politics, whether they were repelled by him or whether they were enthused by him. His traction among teenagers, particularly on TikTok, was immense. You know, I'd have a 17-year-old and a 19-year-old, and they know a heck of a lot more about this guy than I do, I discovered last night. And that speaks to reach, doesn't it? That speaks to reach and influence. And the organisation that he founded, Turning Point, has had some fairly, some fairly pungent controversies in its time. Some of the other people associated with it have gone down some very odd paths. But I don't, well, there's two things I don't fully understand. The first is, we don't even know whether it's political. I want to keep stressing this point, but of course, the likelihood must be that his public pronouncements will have played a role in the motivation of his murderer. That is all you can say at the moment. I feel very lonely in the media on both sides of the Atlantic for not making sweeping statements about the nature of political discourse. I feel that Donald Trump's pardoning of people who launched a coup attempt in his name on January the 6th, not just his failure to condemn them, but his praise for them and his pardoning of them, broke something deep and profound at the heart of what used to pass for American democracy. And if I were comfortable with that, I guess I'd kind of be jumping already onto the ludicrous notion that this murderer somehow represents a caucus of opinion, or this unidentified individual, currently motive unknown, is proof positive of prejudices that I held previously. And I guess it's a little naive of me to think that people would be able to resist the temptation to do that kind of thing. But here we are. Here we are. Wondering two things. Who exactly was he? And what did he stand for? Actually, three things, of course, because then in perhaps addition to those two questions, you move inevitably into the question. And I want to get this question exactly right. Because you can't say, I can't phrase this with anything other than confusion. And my confusion may make me stupid, and I can live with that, but I don't want it to make me crass or insensitive. Why has this... what's the word that I want? Why has this apparent assassination stopped the traffic on this side of the Atlantic and beyond? Keir Starmer, I suspect, ignorant of some of the pronouncements that this chap has made in the past, particularly with reference to, I would suggest off the top of my head, homosexuality and black women's intelligence, has offered a very lavish expression of grief for somebody who you tell me, do you think Keir Starmer could have given you a 10-minute talk yesterday on who Charlie Kirk is and who Charlie Kirk was and what he represented? I don't think he could have done. He has to keep Trump sweet. Trump's already gone all in on why this happened and the motivations and politics of the unidentified and unknown individual or individuals who did it. But Trump's always going to Trump, isn't he? Starmer has to keep him sweet. If he hadn't offered up this paean, perhaps it would have been embarrassing for him next week when Trump arrives. I don't even know. I can't even begin to speculate. Well, I am speculating on it. I can't even begin to reach conclusions on what has happened here. 11 minutes after 10 is the time, and even my presumption that it's a man, as a couple of you have just pointed out, I suspect with your tongue slightly in your cheek, is we don't even know it was a man that did this. I don't know that is the thing we should be focusing on, but it's the thing that has boiled my brain the most this morning. As someone who commentates upon current affairs for a living, for good or for ill, it's a job. For someone who commentates on current affairs for a living, I am, and I've been doing it now for over 20 years, I can't quite believe the confidence with which people are not just speculating upon why this happened, but making incredible and sweeping conclusions, reaching incredible and sweeping conclusions about who did it and what tribe or what political movement they belong to. This is a 31-year-old man with 2 little children. And if that doesn't touch you at all, then you really need to give your head a wobble. Unless you can tell me something that justifies your apparent callousness. I can't conceive, really, of somebody being assassinated in these sort of circumstances without my initial reaction being shock and upset. Initial reaction is kind of, he lived by the sword, he died by the sword. That seems to me to be really odd, but my opinions are largely pointless because I don't know enough about him. And I wonder who does. I mean, I know that I've got colleagues who had barely heard the name before, let alone could have provided you with a thumbnail sketch of what he stands for. And we all do this for a living. The thing that I want help with most, but we've got to go through the 2 first questions. We've got to go through the first 2 questions first, is why... I think you can't separate the individual from the event. So there is something absolutely attention demanding about a public murder of a political figure in a public space. Whether you go back to JFK or Martin Luther King, about whom I think Charlie Kirk had things to say, which we shall probably get to a little later in the programme, that there is the event, the nature of the event, in a way, whoever it was. It's completely different, for example, from somebody being shot on their front doorstep, or somebody being attacked in their home, or somebody being run off the road. There is something about the event, the public nature of the event, that speaks to almost the sort of relationship between public emotion and journalism. So the story will be huge because of how this terrible event happened. But I sense, and I think you would agree with me here, the identity of the victim in this case has also made an enormous contribution to the scale of the coverage and the quality and quantity of the response. 0345 6060 973 is the number you need to tell me who he was, what he stood for, and why his apparent murder. I don't know if you need to say apparent. He couldn't have been an accident. Well, until we know for certain, I suppose you've got to couch your language in all sorts of caveats. But why has this apparent murder prompted such an extraordinary outpouring of what's the word I want? I mean, I don't think that will do. Why has it prompted such an extraordinary outpouring? 0345 6060 973 is the number you need. The bit I can't get past this. The bit I find weirdest is I almost came on air to have a conversation about something that is completely theoretical at the moment, about the idea that this is representative, or whoever undertook this hideous act is representative of anybody other than themselves. You know, you talk about the January the 6th rioters, you know that they enjoy the support of Donald Trump, so you're not just talking about the people who rioted. How can anybody reach conclusions about the motivation of this character until they know at least who it was? And actually, I can add that to the list as well. Why is that happening? Why is there this already frenzied attempt to pretend that they know what happened here? So who's been keeping count of the questions that I've asked? Who was Charlie Kirk? 0345 6060 973. What did he stand for? Why has his apparent murder prompted such an extraordinary outpouring? And could you tell me, presumably having answered all 3 of those questions, why I, as a consumer of UK media with a side order of US, I am being bombarded from all sides by people who haven't got a Scooby-Doo what happened or who did it or why, expressing absolute certainty of what this represents and how it's proof of some enormous, broad truth that manages, for example, Donald Trump's speech managed to completely fail to mention any acts of violence taken against people with whom he would be in political disagreement. It's extraordinary, right? Hit the numbers now. You will get through. I'll probably pay a little bit more attention to texts today as well, but you know what usually happens to those kind of pledges and promises on this programme? I've forgotten them by past. 17 minutes after 10 is the time. The number you need remains the same, and we'll get going on this after this.
James O'Brien on LBC.
19 minutes after 10 is the time. So, simple questions, but goodness knows what your answers will be. Let's start with Steve, who's in Watford. Steve, what would you like to say?
Firstly, I want to say, although I didn't agree with most of the stuff that this guy used to say, I think it's a very sad day for democracy. Nobody should ever be killed over views or words. It's just completely unacceptable.
Do I sound... I mean, obviously I agree with every single syllable of what you've said, but do we not need to be sure that he was before we say that?
Well, we don't know why he was killed because there's no...
Well, exactly. So you can't... Yeah. I mean, I don't know. This might just be me being a bit weird. It happens. I'm sure you know that, Steve. But we don't know that he was killed for his views or his words. It seems extremely likely. But,
I suspect it wasn't from an angry ex or something like that.
No, I do too. But with Anders Behring Breivik, there was a multi-page manifesto, and it seems to me that you wait until you reach that moment, until you get really stuck into the question of what the motivation was and how representative the killer is of any broader movements or opinions.
Well, we have no idea.
Well, exactly. Anyway, go back to the other questions if you would.
Of course. So with Charlie Kirk, I think he was a very popular figure, amongst the right in America, and he built up a lot of fame over the last few years, and he was completely bought into that MAGA circle, and he's been on the payroll of the Trump administration to the tune of $300,000 a year.
That's on the record, is it? It is
on the record. You can check it out.
No, I don't trust you.
Publicly published his salary.
Okay.
And he was picked up because he was a very good debater, although we've seen debates where he's been dismantled by Oxford students and what have you. But I think he appeals to... Well,
at least he went out there in the online age. Yeah. If he's going out there and actually engaging with people, then he's got a lot more, if courage is the right word, than some of the other people occupying the same space.
Yeah. The thing is, he's pushing certain points of view, which I don't want to go into too much detail.
Why not?
But... Well, if you want me to, there were certain things he was coming out with which were very good. I agreed with certain things he said.
Like what?
Other things, family values, promoting bringing up children in a safe and stable environment.
That's fairly... I don't think anybody's in favour of unstable environments, are they?
Yeah,
I think he said... Did he say that Taylor Swift should submit to her husband at some point?
Yeah, that's one of the things he said, which I don't agree with. I think he was pushing it from a certain point of view. Certain things of common sense any decent person would agree with. A lot of the stuff was things that he was pushing, things like the Great Replacement theory on the record.
He's one of those, is he? Hang on, I think we may have that. Let's just have a listen to that, just to be absolutely clear.
It's dramatic. The invasion of the country. We're going to talk more about that. We're going to talk about how the other side has openly admitted that this is about bringing in voters that they want and they like, and honestly diminishing and decreasing white demographics in America. We're going to say that part out loud because so many people in the corporate media are afraid to talk about it.
Wow. Bits of corporate media I'm familiar with never talk about anything else. But that is just not true, is it? The idea that senior Democrats have come out and said we are deliberately trying to replace the white population with non-white people because non-white people are somehow more likely to vote for us.
That's just scratching the surface of a lot of the falsities he was promoting.
Right.
Going back to COVID and beyond. He even was very vocal criticism he expressed about the Civil Rights Act of 1964.
Well, he didn't like that.
How can you possibly say that wasn't a good thing? To giving civil rights to hundreds and thousands, millions of black Americans. It's just shocking that but unfortunately that was gaining a lot of traction. And if you compare it, for example, to the shooting of these Democratic lawmakers, was it Melissa Hoffman and her husband? They were murdered.
Yes.
Trial still going on. That's most people have forgotten about it completely because they were older, middle-aged people. They didn't have a following. They were just politicians. But this guy had a core court appeal to younger Americans. Maybe
did Trump mention Melissa Hortman in his his tribute to Charlie Kirk?
Not that I'm aware of.
You should check that.
I mean, when it happened, when that murder took place, he was very quick to blame the left. He said it was a radical left, and it's been very much publicised that the guy who's going to stand trial for it was a hardcore right-wing Christian fundamentalist. That's openly in the media. Obviously, the guy's going to have his trial and have his sentencing, but what immediately the first thing Trump did was promote that this must have been a far left.
Clearly, you know more
extremist.
about. Yeah, you're. Well, I mean, I don't know whether saying Trump's going to Trump is a very helpful contribution at the moment, but a complete misrepresentation of the facts and a desperate attempt to sow further division, even when something as tragic as both of these killings has happened, seems to me to be very much on brand and very much what I'd expect him to do. Have you been surprised by the scale and the nature, the quantity and the quality of the public response?
Not at all. I think somebody that high profile absolutely is going to get a huge amount of media attention. He was already very much in the media. I mean, Fox News and all the right-wing channels, he would be a darling that they would put up any time, because he was part of that circle of promotion. So he was elevated probably well above his status, because he was a good debater. I mean, no getting away from that. But I think he was just in the right time, at the right place at the right time to be put into that position. And sadly, it's cost him his life.
Yes, very, very sadly.
We don't, obviously, like I said, we don't know, but this.
I don't know. I mean, this may be my petty sort of obsession. This idea of waiting until we actually know why it's happened before we make sweeping statements about why it's happened. But thank you for that. That's really helpful, Steve. One final question. I think there's a lot about individuals in politics in general, because charisma is not a sole preserve of populists or extremists on the right or on the left. Could someone step into his shoes, or did he have, to paraphrase Liam Neeson, did he have a very unique set of skills?
I think there are other people out there that could potentially, there's still other commentators out there, but I think he was probably the most popular one who gained the most traction. So he was then elevated, even higher up to be sort of the poster boy for MAGA politics. And I'm sure there'll be others. There's always going to be others.
There's always going to be others. 26 minutes after 10 is the time. Thank you, Steve. Who was Charlie Kirk? What did he stand for? I'm not brooking any equivocation whatsoever on the utter condemnation of his killing, but I think I'm right to remind you every now and then that we've got no idea why it happened, despite the incredibly confident public pronouncements of an extraordinary number of figures. And why has this killing prompted such an extraordinary response, such an extraordinary outpouring, which will have taken anybody who doesn't spend a lot of time online or plugged deeply into US politics completely by surprise, up to and including the responses, the contributions from the leaders of the two main political parties in this country. 27 minutes after 10 is the time. Arwad is in Liverpool. Arwad, what would you like to say?
Hiya, thank you for having me. Charlie Kirk sort of emerged within the early 2010s as you sort of average. I shouldn't categorize, but he at least seemed mainstream within the right wing political sphere.
Was he right wing when he started? But was he mainstream when he started, or was Turning Point quite fringy?
He didn't start off as fringy
mainstream
now. Because the thing is, right, that seems very strange, because the reason Charlie Kirk got so prominent was, one, he was able to say outrageous things that people on the on even some parts of the hard right would be too nervous to say for right reasons. And two, he was able to produce like these tiny clips that were very, very could be shared on TikTok or could be shared on Instagram that were under 30 seconds. Would both grab attention from obviously his supporters saying, "Oh, this guy's so great. He's able to articulate our points so well and so clearly." And on the other side, when, for example, Charlie Kirk went to Cambridge last year, I believe,
yes,
he got, in my opinion, demolished, and those clips spread as well. So he sort of mastered the virality of things that I think caused.
Do you think he was? I mean, because I know a little bit about virality, but I'm not an architect of what happens to my clips, and I hope I never say anything on this program that I don't really mean. He meant it all. No one doubts his sincerity in his opinions.
I absolutely believe that he meant it all. Okay. I just believe that the political climate in the US after 2016 and especially after 2020 reached such a point where he was like, okay, things that he felt he had been keeping out and would have otherwise been, outrageous to say in reasonable society. He felt like he could say this, and he managed to succeed to some extent.
So he's a glazier, if you like, of the Overton window, like a lot of figures on both sides of the Atlantic. I was reflecting this morning on the assassination of Joe Cox in this country, after which, of course, one political party decided not to suspend campaigning, despite publicly agreeing to do so, we subsequently learned. And, of course, the man who shouted out Britain first at the time repelled almost all of us. Joe Cox's murderer, arguably, British political discourse has moved a lot closer to his worldview in the years since than it was at the time. And that's all I mean by the movement of the Overton window. Let me thank you, Awad. Let me read you a few texts just to highlight what I'm doing today. The first is from Samuel. You literally called a racist and intentionally divisive person courageous. You can't make this up. Right, Samuel. Des writes, I love you, James, but if you actually knew about Kirk or were a black, Latino or gay American afraid to walk the streets, you'd be a lot less liberal about his death, says Des in Sheffield. And Angela writes, what you're doing is really wrong, in my opinion. If you were shot dead, presumably for your political views, would you want a right-wing American radio talk show host to ask Americans to ring in with their opinions of your views and paraphrase what you have said? It is just wrong. Stop it. So, I mean, all three of those people listening to exactly the same radio program and arriving at those incredibly contradictory conclusions. I'll actually address them, I think, in a little bit more detail than I normally would after the very latest headlines with Thomas Watt.
James O'Brien on LBC.
It is 10:34. You are listening to James O'Brien on LBC. There's an awful lot of projection as well going on. A couple of messages early on this hour suggesting that I am somehow pleased about this terrible killing. That's projection, mate. I won't read you messages out. I just want you to reflect upon what you've said and why you've said it. What you are acknowledging there is that if somebody from the other side of the political divide, and I'm still not entirely clear where Charlie Kirk sat, for which I do apologise, I should probably know. But what you're saying when you suggest that you can hear glee in my voice or anything other than sadness at the killing and confusion at the character, what you're doing is projecting how you would feel if somebody you disagree with politically were to be killed. So there's a degree of shame and a degree of guilt in what you're doing when you pretend to think that you can hear things in my voice that you know subconsciously would be in your voice in the event of, God forbid, another Joe Cox style assassination in this country. I'm probably wasting my breath suggesting that you reflect upon that, but goodness me, it's so obvious you can see it from space. The man's got two young children. Immediately, your fellow feeling, your humanity takes you to a place of sympathy and grief. But given that he lived and tragically died very much in public debate, in the public space, immersed in public discourse, it would be ridiculous and absurd not to explore what his contributions to public discourse were. And if you don't like the evidence of what his contributions to public discourse were, that's for you to deal with. That's for you to work through. 36 after 10. And speaking of my inbox, I think on a morning like this, Idiot's Corner would be an inappropriate turn of phrase to deploy, but let's just work through those three that arrived at the same time. You literally called a racist and intentionally divisive person courageous. You can't make this up, says Samuel. I said that he was courageous for debating publicly with people he disagreed with. There seems to me to be an awful lot of discourse, particularly online, driven by anonymous characters or by people who are entirely insulated from the consequences of their opinions, who would never sit down and debate. I imagine that he probably got accused of using his position, and because he was very good at it and a professional debater, he was condescending or bullying, or he should never have been debating with people that were less adroit as him. And I'm, forgive me, fairly familiar with that accusation, which usually comes from people who have failed to successfully argue with somebody. So it is courageous. If he turns out to be a racist and an intentionally divisive person, then in that company, he becomes a courageous example of that, simply, Samuel, by dint of engaging with people that disagree with him. A lot of people don't do that. The second one, if you actually knew about Kirk or were a black Latino or a gay American afraid to walk the streets, you'd be less liberal about his death, says Des in Sheffield. I wouldn't. I think he identified as a Christian, right? I was raised as a Christian. My faith is very, very fluid, more non-existent than existent at this stage in my life. But shortly after my dad died, I was way up the charts on religious faith. And I was raised as a Christian. I can't feel anything other than, you want to call it liberalism, you can, but I call it compassion. And remember, Des, you're listening to the same show as Angela, who thinks what I'm doing is really, really wrong. And how dare you ask people to ring in with their opinions of his views. And somehow what I'm doing then becomes the opposite of what you're hearing and describing. So that to me is interesting. That to me is illuminating. And I keep coming back to the point. The bit I just find weird, because you're going to hear a lot about this today. Nobody knows why this happened. Nobody knows for sure why this happened, and nobody appears to have the first inkling of who did it. It is 10:38. Kevin is in Guildford. Kevin, what would you like to say?
Hi, James.
Hello, mate.
I'm very nervous. It's the first time caller.
Well, take your time. There's nothing to be nervous about, and I'll look after you. Don't worry.
Oh. I am aware of Charlie Kirk.
Yeah.
I'm probably more aware of him because I have I've got a 17-year-old son who follows politics very closely.
Yeah.
I was lying in bed last night, 9 o'clock. He ran into the room and he said, Charlie Kirk. First thing I did this morning was I looked at the news and saw that he was dead.
Yes.
So the first thing I'd open with is I'm desperately sorry that the guy's dead.
Yes, of course.
Nobody should be shot for their opinions, even though.
Again, I keep saying now, I can say if he was, but I mean, let's just do that as a given from now on. Otherwise, I'm going to turn into a stuck record. You know?
So nobody should be shot. Full stop. But his opinions were, for the most part, and I'll come back to the most part later. His opinions were, for the most part, extremely horrible. I mean, absolutely dreadful. He was a very firm supporter of the Second Amendment, and he.
That's the right to bear arms.
That's right. Yeah, he recently came out with a. Sorry, my heart's racing.
Well, I'm really grateful that you've overcome that to ring in, actually, Kevin, because this is really helpful. So carry on and take all the time you need.
He recently came out with a statement regarding the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms, and he said, the Second Amendment, the price we pay for that is the killings that happen in the UK, in the US.
USA, yes.
Yeah. And he said that is the price we pay for it, and he was accepting of that, and he compared it. He compared it to road traffic accidents. He said, if you want to drive a car, there's going to be 50,000 people killed on the road a year. If you want to save 50,000 lives, we don't drive cars, and that's the way he compared it, which I think is. Well,
it's a very good undergraduate sixth form debating point that doesn't really stand up to scrutiny, but presumably makes for a powerful viral clip.
Yeah, and that's exactly what. And indeed, that very clip of him saying that is going viral at the moment
from people who are not being very nice about things.
Well, from people who oppose his views,
right?
Yeah.
So that's not very nice, and that's close to gloating, right?
Yeah.
That's the live by the sword, die by the sword argument that is around and about. What's your boy's view of him? You don't have to answer that. It's none of my business. If you want to share it, I'd be interested to know.
Well, he's against right wing activists, both here and wherever they are. I believe that my son's view of politics is shared by probably most sane people in this country.
There's
and in
not many of us left, Kevin.
Oh God, don't. No.
I hear what you're saying. So have you been surprised, or does your son's engagement make it less surprising to you that the scale of response that we're seeing in this country, particularly?
The scale of response is probably the scale of response in this country is surprising, because I would hazard a guess. I have no idea, but I would hazard a guess that the vast majority of people have never heard of the guy.
Yeah, I think that's true.
But
not 17-year-olds. And not people who spend a lot of time on political social media.
Yeah, you've reminded me of something else I just wanted to say, and I think it's quite important.
Go on.
When my son told me about this this morning, he said he's gone absolutely mental on TikTok. So I looked at TikTok. The second video I saw was graphic, and I think all of these graphic videos should be... I don't want to see things like that, and you can't unsee it.
No, and I haven't seen it, and I don't want to see it either.
Well, don't go on TikTok.
No, well, I mean, that's a fairly reliable state of affairs for me, Kevin, any day of the week, not just...
The thing is, kids are going to go on TikTok and they're going to see this.
Yeah.
It's just... it's appalling. Absolutely appalling. And it's really, really horrific.
And I think that's sound advice for anybody. That is also relevant to the online safety conversations that we've been having in this country recently, and which Donald Trump is on the sort of other side of the argument when it comes to whether or not platforms like that should be doing more to keep footage like that away from our eyes and our children's eyes. It's 10:43. Let's go to Angus, who's in Milan. Angus, what made you pick up the phone?
Oh, good morning, James. Thank you for taking my call. First and foremost, obviously, it's an appalling act. It's absolutely unacceptable, any kind of political assassination, Kennedy, Oswald, Joe Cox, whoever. My thought was that now MAGA and the manosphere, of whom Charlie Kirk was an active member, they have a martyr. And that, I think, is extremely dangerous, especially when we link it to Donald Trump's immediate action and his immediate reaction, which was to point the finger at a whole swathe of left-wing bogeymen and groups that his base will obviously be nervous and hateful towards. And I think it sort of gives Donald Trump, if there was any restraint before, it's going to underline his feeling and his expression of the fact that he should have unlimited power to hunt down and seek retribution against his enemies.
And that would explain the speed with which he has made statements that can't possibly yet be based on fact or knowledge, just on desire. I mean, using phrases like radical left and speaking about... You mentioned Martin Luther King. I think it was in December 2023 when Charlie Kirk actually attacked Martin Luther King, calling him awful and not a good person. And as an earlier caller explained to us, also critiquing the Civil Rights Act of 1965 as if it were a bad thing to outlaw discrimination on the basis of race, colour, religion, sex and national origin, and prohibited segregation. How does that get stopped, if you're right? And I think your theory speaks to some of the things that have already happened, some of the speed with which people are saying things they cannot possibly know to be true, because they want to turn this into a sort of a moment, into a crucial moment.
They won't want it to be stopped, of course, will they? I mean,
any more than he wanted
Bannon,
January the 6th to be stopped.
No, Steve Bannon has talked about martyrs. He said that he was the martyr, and then he said, but martyrs die, and I'm far from being dead baby. That's a direct quote.
Right.
And Trump has
used the word martyr. He's used the word martyr.
Absolutely, yeah, over and over. So it's very much in their mind, this word. And Trump made another very disturbing speech after his brush with Alvin Bragg. He said, "I am your warrior. I am your justice. And for those who have been wronged and betrayed, I am your retribution." And I think that's where he's going to go, which is even more dangerous.
I'm being bombarded with contributions that he has made to public discourse. And, of course, I'm pretty sure from what I know of him and what I have learned of him this morning, he'd have absolutely no problem with his own words being used to assemble an idea of who he was. If Jim in Whitehaven thinks he's listening to a total character assassination, if you don't like what you're hearing, mate, that's him that you're hearing from. These are his. Well, let's actually listen to some of his words after this.
James O'Brien on LBC.
49 is the time. Quite a lot of support for that last suggestion of martyrdom. I've even seen suggestions that Trump might try and use this event as his Reichstag fire moment from people who generally do know what they're talking about, by which I mean not people generally or normally given to hyperbole. And my gut reaction to... I've got some very important breaking news for you, which I promised the producer I'd do before I dived back into the conversation about the murder of Charlie Kirk. Peter Mandelson is no longer the UK ambassador to the United States. It's just been announced that Lord Mandelson has been withdrawn as the US ambassador. So if I've got a horrible feeling I didn't say it because I was so conscious of the sensitivity of the subject matter that we were discussing. But if the Charlie Kirk killing hadn't been front and centre this morning, I would have come on air at 10 o'clock and said, I don't think Lord Mandelson will be the ambassador to the United States by the time we come off air today. Just a sense, we got it with Angela Rayner last Thursday, and of course she didn't go until the Friday, but there is just a sense of the moment that a position becomes untenable. And I think we explored that moment yesterday, and it has only gathered in pace and volume since. And the idea that he sustained contact, friendship, and it emerged this morning, really very, very lavish support for Jeffrey Epstein long after he had been convicted of crimes, before he was convicted of the final crimes, the ones he was in jail for when he took his own life. But that is where it became unsustainable. Some of the messages that have emerged this morning and last night were, absolutely unbelievable, frankly, given the context of what we know, what we knew then, but especially what we know now. So you can use Global Player to rewind live radio, but I'm pretty sure I didn't open the show this morning by saying that I think he'll be gone by the time Sheila Fogarty comes into the studio. Henry Riley is with me just to provide a little more detail on this story. It would have been presumably a Foreign Office Minister speaking to the House of Commons.
That's right. Quite unusual, actually, to have a sacking done in the sort of appropriate way, really. This was announced in the House of Commons by Stephen Doughty. He is the Minister for North America. Indeed, this is what he said.
In light of additional information in emails written by Peter Mandelson, the Prime Minister has asked the Foreign Secretary to withdraw him as ambassador to the United States. The emails show, Mr. Speaker, that the depth and extent of Lord Mandelson's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein is materially different from that known at the time of his appointment. In particular, Mr. Speaker, Lord Mandelson's suggestion that Jeffrey Epstein's first conviction was wrongful and should be challenged is new information. And in light of that, Mr. Speaker, and mindful, as we all are, of the victims of Epstein's appalling crimes, he has been withdrawn as ambassador with immediate effect.
And the Conservatives have anticipated this, actually, James, because Kemi Badenoch has put out quite a sort of polished video that's clearly been done in advance. The caption is, Mandelson might have gone, but just with Angela Rayner, Starmer dithered when he had to be decisive. Time and again, he puts his party above country. He has no backbone and no convictions. But, I think, James, the point, the deputy leadership race, we've had a few dropouts this morning with Paula Barker, with Emily Thornberry. It was inevitable that every candidate was going to be asked, should Peter Mandelson go? Bel Ribeiro Addy was sort of first out the blocks in order to say that. And I think, actually, for Bridget Phillipson, who's seen as the sort of Starmerite candidate, it would have been a particularly tricky line for her to take. But lastly, James, we had a statement from the embassy saying, in light of the additional information in emails written by Peter Mandelson, the Prime Minister has asked the Foreign Secretary to withdraw him as ambassador. The emails show that the depth and extent of Peter Mandelson's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein is materially different from that known at the time of his appointment. In particular, Peter Mandelson's suggestion that Jeffrey Epstein's first conviction was wrongful and should be challenged is new information. And the last line here, in light of that, that, and mindful of the victims of Epstein's crimes, he has been withdrawn as ambassador with immediate effect. And of course, that spectacle next week, James, of Donald Trump's state visit to the UK.
I've got an idea. Any ideas on who could replace him in DC?
I do. Well, George Osborne revealed that he was second last time around, and it did come about. There was an approach, so I would actually suggest
second to Lord Mandelson.
It was well reported he was second.
Oh no!
I could see George Osborne getting it. Here's a rogue name to throw into the mix:
Angela Rayner.
No, it would be funny. I could actually see Jonathan Powell getting it, who's currently the National Security Advisor, very sort of Starmer rights figure. So I can imagine him. I think it's unlikely Angela Rayner gets it, although I know our colleague Ian Dale was speculating whether Nigel Farage could be given that appointment.
Ian Dale. Farage isn't going to want that job.
No, he's not.
Things are going very well for him here for the time being.
A source told Aggie Chambray, our political correspondent, that given where Reform are in the polls, he would not be interested.
I know someone who'd be brilliant at this.
It's not lost on me why I might have won this award. Aside from presenting Match of the Day, the most iconic football show on television for 26 years. And there's so many amazing people that I've worked with, both in front of the camera and behind the camera over that period of time. I want to say a massive thank you to each and every one of them, because I wouldn't be here now receiving this award if it wasn't for them. And also, I think it demonstrates that perhaps it's okay sometimes for us to use our platform to speak up on behalf of those who have no voice. So thank you. It means the world. Thank you very much.
Gary Lineker there, receiving the National Television Award for Best Presenter last night, bringing to an end a 23-year-long streak in which Ant and Dec have picked up that particular gong. And that, of course, is voted for by the public. You could have been forgiven for not understanding quite what public feeling was about Gary Lineker if you were taking your guidance from some learned members of this profession. When will we know? I mean, they're going to need... The ambassador plays quite a big role on the state visit, I learned yesterday. Yeah. So, I mean, they're going to have to get someone in place pretty quickly.
They are, and that's why, if I was going to surmise, I would suggest Karen Pierce, who's the former ambassador.
No one really understood why she got handed her sandwiches wrapped in a roadmap in the first place.
Well, I think she was looking for a way out.
Right.
She'd done it for a while. She's got very good connections with the Trump campaign. She's seen as a sort of consummate professional.
I know you're doing, you're bigging up your portfolio here at LBC, but they could probably give you a sabbatical. If there's a sort of Brick went to work for Theresa May for a while, you could have a swing at ambassador, couldn't you, Henry?
It wouldn't be bad, would it? I mean,
it would do a great job,
it'd be great. But I'd actually think Karen Pierce could get it on a temporary basis, James. Give it to her for a year. She's actually involved with this state visit, even though she's not in post. But lastly, here's my hot tip. I actually wouldn't rule out David Lammy, because he's got such a close relationship with J.D. Vance. I appreciate he's just been made Deputy Prime Minister, which is slightly tricky, but close relationship with the Trump camp. Vance, he's built his ties as Foreign Secretary. Who knows?
Okay. I mean, I'll give you the money myself if that one comes in. Is that entirely off your own back?
It's entirely off my own back. I mean, yeah.
So you'd have to stand down as an MP, which would mean they'd have a by-election.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine they'd be chomping.
They wouldn't be thrilled about it
necessarily at the moment.
I think he'd fancy it though.
Do you?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I tell you what, mate, I don't know quite what to say beyond the old Les Dennis quote about giving you the money myself if that one comes in. But we shall see. Who knows? Stranger things have happened. So we can't really talk about it. That was going to be my second hour on the programme. Should Mandelson go? But now can we? Are we sure? I mean, I want to do a little bit more on Charlie Kirk. It is Thursday, so mystery hour on the way at 12. How much damage has Starmer done by saying he had confidence? But you've told us the answer to that question. That's why they've been at such great pains to stress this is new information. This is not information that was available yesterday when I stood by him. This is new information that I wasn't aware of about him saying things like, it's outrageous that you got jailed and it could never have happened here.
I also think it's very telling, James, that Peter Mandelson hasn't resigned himself. He's been the Prime Minister. Well, exactly.
He's out at Boris Johnson levels of dismissal from public office, isn't he? So he's gone twice, I think, from the cabinet, and once from the US Embassy, the UK Embassy in DC.
First resignation was 1998 when he was business secretary. He had to resign because of a sort of loan agreement. Then there was 2001, I believe it was, when there was the sort of citizenship issue. Yes. And now, yes, this time, I mean, the fact that he hasn't gone of his own accord, I think some people will think he tried to tough it out, but couldn't quite.
Will he speak?
He often can't resist.
No, but that's what I was wondering. I mean, there is only one comment that traditionally you can make at this point, isn't there, Henry?
No.
We should give it to Big Sam until the end of the season.
I mean, stranger things have happened, I suppose.
Stranger things have happened. So we'll probably straddle the Atlantic in the course of the next hour, because I'm still keen to collate more information and more input on Charlie Kirk, the victim of, you have to say with some confidence, an assassination in the United States of America yesterday. The nature of that killing speaks to a quite surprising level of expertise on the part of the killer, according to all of the commentary and analysis that I have seen. But many people listening to this programme will still be a little bit confused, A, about who he was and what he stood for, and B, of course, why this has prompted such an extraordinary outpouring. And I wonder if yin and yang is playing a part. I wonder if the theory that Trump is very keen to establish a form of martyrdom for his own political ends becomes the yin, and then some of the responses from the other side of the political divide are born of the notion that this is huge and therefore we must respond as well. So it becomes a sort of self-sustaining phenomenon. Either way, I think you would be foolish to ignore the volume of the conversation.
James O'Brien on LBC.
Minutes after 11 is the time. The breaking news this morning is that Lord Mandelson has been withdrawn, sacked, fired as the UK's ambassador to the United States of America, something that you may want to dive into this hour. If you do, you know what to do. A question of, I suppose the question becomes, how much damage does this do to Keir Starmer? You would not have struggled to find people in his own inner circle who would have cautioned against the wisdom of appointing, or the idea of appointing, somebody whose previous political forays have always ended in ignominy. Mandelson's a fascinating character in many ways, because as a backroom man, he is peerless. He is an extraordinary architect of other people's public political success. And yet he appears to have an almost irresistible desire to get into the public sphere himself. I mean, he was an MP when he started out. The idea of him becoming a spin doctor or a background man was not necessarily an obvious course of action. I've known some producers a bit like that in the radio business. You can spot them from a mile off. The ones who've got no interest whatsoever in making you look better on air. They're just desperately waiting for their chance to get into the studio and behind the microphone themselves. And I don't think Mandelson's like that, because he would have been a brilliant producer, you see. It's a good analogy, that. Mandelson would have been a brilliant producer. But he would also have had this burning ambition to get on air himself. And whenever he got on air, or indeed whenever he got a big job in politics, he kind of blew it. Often because of decisions taken in his personal life rather than his political life. And as we discussed yesterday, often because of this weird reverence that he seems to have for epic wealth. In the presence of epic wealth, his normally impeccable judgment appears to disintegrate. That's, I think, forgive me, I nearly said that's quite a good observation. It was almost as if I'm providing a red button commentary upon my own radio show. But it is, isn't it? I can't be the first to note this. It is as if his normally impeccable judgment disintegrates when he's in the presence of epic wealth. I'm keen to do a little more on Charlie Kirk, but if you also want to, there's a couple of phone lines free at the moment, so if you want to tell me how damaging you think this is, make no mistake, seems one of those mornings where the idea that you can hold two ideas in your head at the same time, you can, as many of my contributors have done, find Charlie Kirk's public opinions reprehensible and repellent, but still feel nothing but shock and horror at his murder. You don't have to define everything you do according to political fealty or loyalty. Kemi Badenoch played an absolute blinder in PMQs yesterday. She had Keir Starmer all over the place. I've never seen her as effective as she was at PMQs yesterday, but I don't know. I mean, it's politics is a weird business. This story, the Charlie Kirk killing, will have overshadowed some of the coverage that would ordinarily have been dedicated to Peter Mandelson or to PMQs yesterday. Mandelson's story will now, and I'm sorry to be cynical, but this is the nature of the business that I work in, Mandelson's story will now overtake the Charlie Kirk story on this side of the Atlantic. It will now become a bigger political story than it was at 9 o'clock this morning when Charlie Kirk was dominating most of the headlines. And I have the 24-hour news channels on in the background, so I can see it happening in real time. But the question of what the legacy of Mandelson's latest sacking might be is one that I'd quite like you to answer. 0345 6060973 is the number that you need. Let's just have a little look at some of the things that Charlie Kirk was known for, because again, unlike some of you, but like many of you, I'm on a bit of a learning curve this morning. So here is a biblical reference that you may remember from it the days when it used to pop up all the time on this program.
It doesn't just say love your neighbor, though. It does say love your neighbor, except in a sense.
As yourself, but hold on. She's not totally wrong when she says,
yourself.
First of all, the first part is Deuteronomy 6:3-5. The second part is Leviticus 19. So you love God. So you must love his law. How do you love somebody?
Here we go, folks.
You love them by telling them the truth, not by confirming or affirming their sin. And it says, by the way, Miss Rachel, you might want to crack open that Bible of yours, in a lesser referenced part of the same part of Scripture is in Leviticus 18, is that thou shalt lay with another man shall be stoned to death. Just saying. So, Miss Rachel, you quote Leviticus 19, love your neighbor as yourself. The chapter before affirms God's perfect law when it comes to sexual matters.
That's a familiar argument, isn't it? And you know what you do at this point. You point out that also in Leviticus there are similar insistences that you should never eat shellfish or indeed wear two types of fabric at the same time. I don't know whether he is on the record anywhere of having shared his views on those two teachings. Charlie Kirk's voice there was the second. This is a very strange intervention, but one which I think explains some of the messages I've been receiving this morning.
No, I mean, like, you want to go thought crime? Like,
That's why I think this United story and the DEI story hits so hard, because we've all been in the back of a plane when the turbulence hits or when you're flying through a storm and you're like, I'm so glad I saw the guy with the right stuff and the square jaw get into the cockpit before we took off, and I feel better now thinking about that.
No, I mean, like, you want to go thought crime? Like, I'm sorry, if I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified.
Well, that's the
you wouldn't have done that. You wouldn't have. You wouldn't have done that before.
That's not an immediate.
No, you wouldn't have done that before.
That's not who I am.
Wow. I mean, they're very good at saying we all feel this, aren't they? I cannot conceive of any circumstances in which I'd be on an aeroplane and the ethnicity of the pilot would give me cause for pause. Wow. I mentioned earlier the comments about Taylor Swift, which I don't think are going to sound that pungent compared to what we just heard about the qualifications of black pilots.
I hope that America's biggest pop star marrying the pharmaceutical spokesperson ends up conservatizing them. Taylor Swift might go from a cat lady to a J.D. Vance supporter, and I think we should celebrate that. I think that Taylor Swift having 2 or 3 children, she should have more children than she has houses. That is my challenge. This is something that I hope will make Taylor Swift more conservative. Engage in reality more and get outside of the abstract clouds. Reject feminism. Submit to your husband, Taylor. You're not in charge.
Whoa, okay. That's black people and women fairly neatly dealt with, including one of the most successful and publicly powerful women on the planet. do you remember when Paul Pelosi was attacked in his home? It was a pretty hideous event. An 82-year-old man attacked in his home with a hammer. A lot of conversation today about political violence, and as with the condemnations of Charlie Kirk's killing, you would think that everybody, wouldn't you, would respond immediately to condemnations of the attack upon Paul Pelosi himself, not even the politician. Donald Trump's son reacted to that crime, that very unpleasant crime, by joking. He posted a picture online of a hammer and a pair of underpants saying, "I've got my Paul Pelosi Halloween costume ready." Charlie Kirk and others alluded to a kind of homophobic conspiracy theory in the context of that attack on Paul Pelosi as well. But he also had views about what should happen to, or what kind of support the man who attacked that 82-year-old in his own home should receive.
I mean, I'm looking at Politico.com, I'm looking at the New York Times, I'm looking at all these places, and there's like a little bit of mention here. For example, Politico says top Republicans reject any link between GOP rhetoric and Paul Pelosi assault. Of course you should reject any link. Why is the Republican Party, why is the conservative movement to blame for gay schizophrenic nudists that are hemp jewelry makers breaking into somebody's home, or maybe not breaking into somebody's home? Why are we to blame for that exactly? And why is he still in jail? Why has he not been bailed out? By the way, if some amazing patriot out there in San Francisco or the Bay Area wants to really be a midterm hero, someone should go and bail this guy out. I bet his bail's like $30,000 or $40,000. Bail him out and then go ask him some questions. I wonder what his bail is. They're going after him with attempted murder, political assassination, all this sort of stuff. I'm not qualifying it. I think it's awful. It's not right. But why is it that in Chicago...
This is Charlie Kirk reflecting upon an attack on Paul Pelosi, the husband of Nancy Pelosi. And I completely agree with him. That was really interesting. I hadn't listened to all of that before. Because he's absolutely right. How on earth could anybody have extrapolated from that attack broader points about the Republican political movement or about right-wing politics? Have another listen to this, because it's a really good analysis of why it is wrong and ridiculous and probably deeply dangerous to take one individual act. And in this case, remember, the identity of the attacker was known. In the case of Charlie Kirk's own killing, the identity of the attacker is still not known. The motivation is absolutely unestablished. But he's absolutely right, isn't he, to say that it is ridiculous? Well, you listen to what he says about the very notion of taking one individual act of violence and pretending or arguing or claiming that it's evidence of any broader political truths.
I mean, I'm looking at Politico.com, I'm looking at the New York Times, I'm looking at all these places, and there's like a little bit of mention here. For example, Politico says top Republicans reject any link between GOP rhetoric and Paul Pelosi assault. Of course you should reject any link. Why is the Republican Party, why is the conservative movement to blame for gay schizophrenic nudists that are hemp jewelry makers breaking into somebody's home, or maybe not breaking into somebody's home? Why are we to blame for that exactly? And why is he still in jail? Why has he not been bailed out? By the way, if some amazing patriot out there in San Francisco,
I don't know.
Or the Bay
I presume
Area,
from what I've learned this morning that he would have made the same point from the other side of the political divide and would therefore be uncomfortable with some of the attempts to use his own tragic killing as an opportunity to attack a political movement or a political side. And then, as you've already heard, he was a big fan of this racist conspiracy theory.
You know what's dramatic? The invasion of the country. We're going to talk more about that. We're going to talk about how the other side has openly admitted that this is about bringing in voters that they want and they like, and honestly diminishing and decreasing white demographics in America. We're going to say that part out loud, because so many people in the corporate media are afraid to talk about it.
I wish I could meet a few of the ones that are afraid to talk about it, because increasingly it seems we live in a discourse where people talk about little else. And then finally, if you thought what he had to say about black pilots was challenging, wait until you hear what he has to say about black women.
Joy Reid and Michelle Obama and Sheila Jackson Lee and Ketanji Brown Jackson were affirmative action picks, we would have been called the racist. But now they're coming out and they're saying it for us. They're coming out and they're saying, I'm only here because of affirmative action. Yeah, we know. You do not have the brain processing power to otherwise be taken really seriously. You had to go steal a white person's slot to go be taken somewhat seriously. Play cut 52.
But I rise today as a clear recipient of affirmative action, and particularly in higher education. I may have been admitted on affirmative action, both in terms of being a woman and a woman of color, but I can declare that I did not graduate on affirmative action. This is my personal story.
I hear because of action affirmative. She can't even say that. We know. It's very obvious to us that you were not smart enough to be able to get in on your own. I couldn't make it on my own, so I needed to take opportunities from someone more deserving. You know, this is how arrogant Joy Reid and Ketanji Brown Jackson and Michelle Obama and Sheila Jackson Lee are. They're so narcissistic, they think this is persuasive. They think we're like, oh, of course, that's why we need affirmative action, because you have impressed us with your brilliance.
And nobody, of course, could be a more powerful poster boy for a meritocracy than Donald Trump. And finally, one which I'm not going to provide any introduction for. I'm just going to play it to you. There is a bleep in it for reasons that I hope will become clear when you listen to this.
So I just have one question. There's, in any case, you don't think there's any case where abortion should be legal?
There's a very, very rare couple cases.
Okay, so you do think that a couple cases it is legal?
If cesarean section is not going to save the mother's life, and the mother's life is actually at risk, which is debated amongst growing numbers of OBGYNs,
okay,
that is the only case where abortion should be allowed.
Do you think there
but people say it is a growing consensus in the pro-life world that abortion is never medically necessary.
Okay, so if you had a daughter and she was 10 and she got raped, and she was going to give birth, and she would and she was going to give birth and she was going to live, would you want her to go through that and carry her baby?
That's awfully graphic.
It's a real life scenario that happens to many people.
The answer is yes, the baby would be delivered.
Oh, okay, great. So that's insane.
I think you know what the word was, don't you? That was bleeped out, not by us actually, but the should I tell you what it was? Or do you, no, yeah, the word was raped. If his own child had been raped, would he want his opposition to bodily autonomy for women to consign her to a birth that she theoretically, thank God, would not want anything at all to do with, and I could carry on. And remember, this is an attempt to understand who he was and why he excites such strong emotions, particularly perhaps this morning among people who consider him to be a martyr. Or Boris Johnson has spoken of him as being somebody who simply said things that were common sense. I have to extend the same generosity to Boris Johnson that I extended to Keir Starmer. I don't believe that Boris Johnson would describe it as a common sense position. To contend that your raped child should be forced to go through with a pregnancy. This is, again, me being generous to Boris Johnson, that he wouldn't have known any of this. And there is quite a lot more. And if you don't like what you're hearing, that's on you. It really is, because I'm trying to work out why he enjoys such extraordinary emotional support from public figures. And the nicest thing you can say about them is that they may not know about this stuff, but they must have known about some of it, and they're cool, comfortable, and indeed encouraging of everything that they do know.
James O'Brien on LBC.
22 minutes after 11, and I don't know whether or not anything that you've just heard gets filed under free speech warrior or martyr or speaker of common sense in your world or something rather different. If, like me, it gets filed under something rather different, you have to wonder why so many people on this side of the Atlantic are queuing up to offer up the support for what he stood for and said. Sorrow at his killing and condemnation of his killer should be, sadly it isn't, but it should be a given. But the idea that any of those comments, any of those contributions to public discourse count as common sense, as Boris Johnson has argued this morning, seems to me to be distinctly, profoundly strange. Jack's in Aberystwyth. Jack, what would you like to say?
Morning, James. I'm going to be honest. I didn't think I was ever going to be calling in to talk about Charlie Kirk on this on this radio station. And I didn't think I was ever going to talk about him in this situation where he's died, because I'll be honest. I'll be very open. I hated and despised everything he stood for, and I despised him as a person.
Okay.
Everything that he is, I honestly, everything that he said is everything I go against.
There must have been. The first caller today, when I knew a lot less about him than I do now, suggested that some of the things he said are common sense. I mean, the problem with family values as a phrase is that you think, well, who's against family values? And then you learn that somebody, not him necessarily, didn't need to be, doesn't think that, gay people should be having children, or so even family values can be quite a loaded phrase, can't it, in the hands of some people?
Exactly. And that's why, and he was basically somebody that would weaponize those kind of things, like the things that everyone would say was common sense,
right,
but he would weaponize them to an extreme. Such as basically trying to is like turn around and say to people that they should be following evangelical Christian values, which are completely, when you then start to break them down and go against things like the Old Testament and so on, they are completely asinine in this day and age. But the point I was trying to make was that even though I hate and despise him for everything that he has said and everything that he has done, everything he stood for, I was incredibly upset when I heard that he died yesterday. I didn't think I would ever feel this way about somebody that I completely disagreed with in every single way of fashion. But it was this visceral feeling in myself where I was like, this is for some reason I should feel elated that he's gone and I don't have to listen to him anymore.
But he's a human being. You're describing humanity, aren't you?
Yes. Exactly, and that's the thing, because I've always said to people, I support Free Palestine. I'm about morality, and somebody being killed for their political views, no matter how outrageous they are, in my opinion, is wrong. It's wrong under every single sense of fashion. And the best way I can describe this, James, is there's a guy that basically was a nemesis to Charlie Kirk on TikTok, called a guy called Dean Withers.
Okay.
He's a left-wing version, basically, of Charlie Kirk. And yesterday, when it was announced that Charlie Kirk was pronounced dead, Dean Withers, a man who despised him as much as I did, he broke down in tears in front of 250,000 people on TikTok last night. Just broke down, basically going, I understand who he is and what he stood for, but he's a human being with a wife and kid, man.
I think this is the response that some of Donald Trump's supporters, and possibly even Donald Trump himself, are very keen to either ignore or close down. I think the notion that you respond with compassion and empathy to the crime, but you can retain your revulsion at the opinions and the views, is something that they can't tolerate.
Yeah. There's a person I'm friends with on Facebook that we haven't spoken in a long time, and before he was even pronounced dead, he was already spouting garbage, saying, "Oh, it's the left-wing extremists. They're coming out to kill all of us. It's like if you disagree with them, they'll come out and kill you and stuff like that." And I was so tempted to comment on it and go and say, "It's not even been pronounced. It's not even like we don't even know who the killer is."
But they don't want that, of course. They don't. That explains the speed and the use of the word martyr. And this is why people are, I don't know, perhaps a little bit hyperbolically reaching for words like Reichstag. They don't want to acknowledge that you can find his opinions repellent and find his killing disgusting. and heartbreaking because he is a human being who was in the business of defending his position, as far as I can tell. A position I think is indefensible, but the reason I use the word courageous at the top of the show is that a lot of people with positions that I find indefensible never, ever actually seek to defend them in hostile territory, and he used to do that.
Yeah, this is a man that went out of his way to go onto college campuses where it's like college campuses. They are a breeding ground really for left wingers because of that, because of the way that that people mature and stuff. Like they try and see things a bit naively and stuff like that. So he goes there to basically confront them. Like South Park made a great parody by basically going, the reason he does it because it's very easy for him to do so because he can debate with these people very easily.
Yes.
But if you try and put him onto a stage where he's amongst more mature minds, he's going to break down. I mean, hell, the most it's like one of the videos that basically destroyed his reputation really in this country, in my opinion, is when he tried to debate Cambridge students.
We should probably have a listen to some of that as well, shouldn't we?
Seriously, he was debated that he's like an archaeologist that basically provided proof that ancient Mesopotamia had homosexual relations and stuff like that. It's that kind of thing where he's like, as much as I despised him, as much as I hated him, I never wish for somebody to be killed.
Because I'm like you, and I don't want this to turn into a let's pat each other on the back for how decent and humane we are, but I'm even a little bit uncomfortable with you using words like despise, and I think that's me being a bit silly, because you've been completely articulate and clear in your views and in your empathy and your compassion, but, you know, that's why people are very worried about what happens next, because... Yes. I think he had words to say. He had words to say about empathy itself, didn't he? This character, he said that empathy was
a new term that's been created by basically my generation. That is very dangerous and stuff like that. Like, even though empathy, as you could clearly find out, is found centuries ago. But I understand that words like despise and hatred are very powerful. They are very powerful, but. It's this kind of... I use the same language when I speak about people like Benjamin Netanyahu and Putin, but I would rather see them... I don't want to see them killed. I want to see them face their crimes. I want to see them face justice for the things they have done and the things they have said.
Why are you worried about where this might lead? What are you worried about now in the context of what we've already seen by way of response, when, I have to labour this point, we have no idea who did it, and for now we only have theories as to why it was done?
And this is the problem, because of certain situations such as when, remember when Trump, Trump was shot at last year? Immediately you see everyone going online saying he was a left-wing nutter. The guy was somebody that disagreed with Trump. He was from the left-wing side. He supported Kamala Harris and stuff like that. That's the same situation we have now. And the difference is that, like, for example, there was 2 Democrats that got killed.
In Minnesota, yes.
In Minnesota. Not a single word was mentioned by the people, by the likes of Charlie Kirk or anyone along those lines, because it doesn't fit their narrative. But now, as soon as you try and provide that evidence to them of going, well, where were you when these 2 Democrats were killed? They have nothing to say. And this is why I'm worried.
Yes, because your empathy can feel a bit like weakness.
Yes. Yeah. They will take full advantage of it to say that if you show empathy for the other side, it's all about it's about keeping this culture war in place.
And that's why Trump is already talking about the rhetoric of the radical left being responsible for this killing, without, of course, telling you what is the rhetoric of the radical left. Don't launch coups. Don't round up people because they look a bit Mexican. Don't deport people who've got every right to live in America. Don't pardon people who launched an attack upon the seat of US democracy itself and were baying for the blood of the actual vice president. What is the radical left rhetoric that Donald Trump is referring to without any evidence or basis whatsoever? And hey, spoiler alert, the people who lap this stuff up don't care. They're too busy lapping it up. Jack, thank you, mate. 11:32 is the time. After the news, Simon Marks will join us to talk us through, to give us a perspective from the other side of the Atlantic. Thomas Watts is here now with your headlines.
James O'Brien on LBC.
5 minutes to 12 is the time. 0345 60 60973 is the number you need if you want to contribute to the conversation that we're having about the political context in which this killing of Charlie Kirk is now unfolding and has unfolded, an awful lot of people who I presume would have described themselves as fans and admirers of him seem very upset about us reflecting upon things that he actually said. I thought that was a really important thing to do. I've got a lot more in front of me, but we haven't been able to find the footage of it. And I feel it would be inappropriate to read stuff out. You're perfectly entitled to disagree every day, every subject, everything I ever say, you're perfectly entitled to disagree with. But I don't really see how you can be upset about listening to things that he actually said from a perspective of defending or supporting him. Surely you... I mean, I don't know, but how else do you find out what somebody stands for other than by listening to him? And we have. And I have not liked what I have heard. But that doesn't, as Jack in Aberystwyth, I thought, perfectly articulated, that doesn't detract a single scintilla of sympathy from me for the killing itself and for the family that is left behind. And you know, I don't get it sometimes. How are you supposed to feel less sorry for his wife that she's been widowed because he was somebody who felt that wives should submit to husbands? No. That's humanity. That's how it works. And if the other, quotes, side, end quotes, laugh at and abhor and mock your values, then you don't abandon your values, even when they begin, as Jack argued, to feel like weakness. You think, you know, I was being a little bit sarcastic, perhaps, when I praised Charlie Kirk for saying that Paul Pelosi's attacker should not be used as evidence of broader political truths. Quite a few of you are bombarding me with evidence that character was actually a subscriber to some of the political positions that would be described as very right-wing or very Trumpian. But it doesn't change the truth of what I believe, which is certainly in the absence, even if you could find out that the killer was a fully paid-up member of the Barack Obama Appreciation Society, it doesn't tell you anything about anybody else. And if you want to talk about discourse, how a discourse is divisive, then you have to look at words that have been said. So when Donald Trump says radical left rhetoric is responsible for this killing, he is absolutely betting on the fact that you don't stop to wonder, or his supporters don't stop to ask what that radical left rhetoric is. You know? Because if you stop to ask what it is, you come up with things like, I'm not sure you should be arresting people for looking a bit Mexican, American people. I'm not sure you should be deporting people with permanent residence status. I'm not sure you should be criminalising people who've been living, working and paying taxes and raising families in the United States of America for 20, 30, 40 years. I'm not sure that a young child who has been raped should be forced to go to the labour ward and give birth to her rapist baby. Is this radical left rhetoric? Have I crossed the threshold yet? Is any of this radical left rhetoric? I don't think... If people decide to launch a murderous attack upon the seat of their own democracy, I don't think you should pardon the people responsible. Is that radical? I don't know. Anyway, enough from me. Simon Marks is in Washington, D.C. Two stories, really. Let's begin with the UK end, if we may. How big a story is Peter Mandelson's sack? It's probably too early to say, but how big a story has the saga been in the last 24 hours in the States, Simon?
Well, it's been a big story here in Washington, D.C., James, of course, because Peter Mandelson was a noted figure and prominent character in this city. I mean, once you get outside the confines of the nation's capital, he's just another ambassador, but certainly here extremely well known and noted for the ingratiating, frankly unctuous way in which he had treated Donald Trump every time that he was in Donald Trump's orbit. I mean, I can only think of one other official who has engaged in more flattery of the American president on camera, and that's NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte. But Peter Mandelson definitely gave him a run for his money, and even over the weekend, in what I suspect was his final speech as UK ambassador to the United States at the Ditchley Foundation back there in the UK, Peter Mandelson was articulating the view that the president may not follow the traditional rule book or conventional practice but he is a risk taker in a world where a business as usual approach no longer works. I mean, the centrality of his message was a reflection of what the Prime Minister's approach to Donald Trump has been throughout this year, which is you've got to flatter him, you've got to work with him, you never confront him, certainly in public. I mean, it was notable that Sir Keir Starmer was not like Friedrich Merz or Emmanuel Macron, confrontational with Donald Trump when they were all here alongside Volodymyr Zelensky after that disastrous Alaska summit between President Trump and Vladimir Putin. Keir Starmer wants to position himself, and Mandelson was the architect of it, as the European leader that Donald Trump likes to work with. And so here we are, 1 week before that second state visit to the UK, which itself is a massive hostage to fortune for Number 10, with Number 10 now having to admit that the much vaunted vetting operation of Sir Peter Mandelson, Lord Mandelson, that they were talking about yesterday, in fact, was apparently not as ironclad as they suggested it was 24 hours ago, and that they've now learnt new stuff thanks to the documents gathered initially by Bloomberg that have led them to believe that he's got to go. Which means, if you follow that argument to its logical conclusion, that Lord Mandelson has been a bit of a security risk for the UK while he has been serving here as the UK's ambassador to the United States, because if the British government hadn't seen all of this damning evidence against him with regard to his relationship to Jeffrey Epstein, but other governments might have been aware of its existence, I mean, it's not drawing a ludicrous inference to think that Peter Mandelson may have found himself potentially in a somewhat compromising position. So, I mean, I think it's clearly a disaster in the bilateral relationship.
And just to back up a little bit, I have been a little bit baffled by the warmth with which Donald Trump speaks of Sir Keir Starmer. It seems slightly at odds with almost every other aspect of his worldview and his public performance. But you believe that that is largely down to Mandelson's interventions and Mandelson's management?
Well, I think that the policy, of course, is set by the Prime Minister. There's no doubt about that. But he picked Lord Mandelson for a reason. And it was a curious choice, given that Peter Mandelson had been the EU Trade Commissioner. I mean, not someone whose CV necessarily would lend itself to tremendous amounts of admiration from Trump insiders. But he turned to him because he thought that Peter Mandelson had the guile to win Donald Trump over and to try and avoid that confrontation that the Prime Minister, at least over the short term, is eager either to avoid or simply kick into the long grass. I mean, the problem with all of this, James, is that we're a week away from that state visit. And the second that state visit is over, and Donald Trump boards Air Force One to fly back to the United States with his much coveted picture of him and the king tucked into his suit pocket. At that point, we are going to discover very quickly, I suspect, that it's going to become open season on the UK in terms of the bilateral relationship, because, and there's a link here between Peter Mandelson and the Charlie Kirk killing yesterday, people like Charlie Kirk have been relentlessly telling Donald Trump that free speech is dead in the UK, that Sir Keir Starmer is leading an authoritarian government, that he's taken Britain into the abyss. Those are Charlie Kirk's words just over the last 3 months. And as soon as this state visit is over, the risk for the British government is that Donald Trump starts absolutely accentuating the argument that free speech in the UK is in retreat. And of course, he's being buoyed in taking that position by the man who was here in Washington, D.C. last week, a man that Donald Trump himself has mused would be a great UK ambassador to the United States, the Member of Parliament for Clacton, Nigel Farage. So the die, I fear, may be cast for the future of this bilateral relationship, no matter how much people like Lord Mandelson try to fluff up Donald Trump and assure him that actually he really is one of the world's great leading statesmen.
Which is kind of a piece with what I said about his current attitude to Starmer being rather at odds with every other aspect of the world view. You think the planets will probably align once Mandelson is removed from the picture, and Trump will fall into line with all of the big MAGA figures who are spouting this nonsense about the United Kingdom's relationship with free speech.
Well, if the state visit is the big card you've got to play, because you know how much Donald Trump covets time with the royal family, and not just the king, also with Prince William. He's got a strong relationship, he says, with Prince William. If that's the strongest card in your arsenal, to play that within the first year of a 4-year Trump administration means that you're not going to have many cards to play on the other side of the state visit. And these voices in Donald Trump's ear about free speech in the UK are similar to voices that have been in Donald Trump's ear about supposedly negative developments in other countries around the world that have doomed those bilateral relationships. Look at what's happened to the US relationship with South Africa, based on misinformation largely that has been whispered into Donald Trump's ear by his acolytes. This free speech issue is not going to go away, and it runs every risk after the state visit of becoming an even greater irritant in the transatlantic bilateral relationship.
You've been demoted by Alex, Simon. Alex has been in touch to say brilliant analysis by the current caller. So I do have the best callers in the business, but just for the avoidance of doubt, Simon Marks is our Washington editor. And while I have you, and before you go, obviously the news agenda in the United States is completely dominated by the killing of Charlie Kirk. I don't know how to phrase this question, really, but how significant do you think it is that the authorities don't seem to have any handle at all on who did it or where they've gone?
Well, I think it's very significant and very concerning for the political class writ large, because as much as Donald Trump last night characterised this in purely partisan terms, an extraordinary address from the Oval Office talking about the radical left contributing to the shooting, vowing to find those people responsible for political violence as well as the organisations that fund it and support it. He's talking about a witch hunt against potentially only left-leaning organisations in the United States, accusing liberal criticism of conservatives for being directly responsible for the terrorism that we're seeing in our country today. It must stop right now. As much as he wants to cast political violence as being a left-on-right issue, first, we have no idea who committed this killing. The FBI clearly doesn't. They were appealing for tips last night. They don't often do that when they've got a strong and solid lead. So we don't know what the motivation for this assassination was. We do know that the assassin who tried to kill Donald Trump the first time around in the American presidential election last year, the Butler, Pennsylvania attack, just like the Charlie Kirk killing, appears to have been mounted from a rooftop overlooking the venue. How on earth that happened? Only 6 police officers yesterday in Utah to police an event with 3,000 people coming to hear one of the most controversial figures in American politics speaking. Huge questions about that. But we don't know the motivation for this attack. And it comes just weeks after, and this runs completely counter to Donald Trump's narrative, 2 Democratic Party lawmakers in Minnesota were killed by a lone gunman, killed along with their spouses. Donald Trump at the time didn't attend either of the lawmakers' funerals, wouldn't even call the governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, who of course was Kamala Harris's running mate in the last presidential election, describing Tim Walz as a whack job. He said, I could call him, but why would I spend my time doing that? Language that arguably fueled the polarization in American politics here. So it is deeply concerning that there is a gunman, at least one, on the loose, that we don't know what that gunman's motivation is, and that we are now in a political season where people from all over the spectrum are about to make public appearances. The former Vice President Kamala Harris is about to begin a book tour to promote her memoir, 107 Days, about her failed presidential campaign. And only 10 days ago, President Trump withdrew her Secret Service security protection. Now, he says it's all the radical left that is fueling this political violence in the United States, but that simply doesn't reflect the reality of a deeply troubling rise in political violence in this country that today, given that we have no idea of the motivation for this latest attack, leaves political speakers on both sides of the political equation here. And there's no minimising the tragedy of what took place in Utah yesterday. It leaves speakers on both sides of the political aisle here deeply at risk.
Simon Marks, thank you. It's been a horrible story in so many ways, and you've reminded us of some of the ramifications and significant factors of it quite perfectly. Thank you, as always. Simon Marks, LBC's Washington editor, there talking to us about the two big stories of the moment, one involving the killing of the commentator Charlie Kirk, and one, of course, the sacking this morning of the ambassador to Washington, the UK's ambassador to the United States of America, Lord Mandelson, both of which, no doubt, will be dominating the conversation on this radio station for the rest of the day, although not in the next hour. That's the silly season. The time now is 11:51.
James O'Brien on LBC.
It is 11:54. A little bit of mopping up some stuff that that you have sent to me previously this hour. Hi, James. Right, Steve, I love you, but remember, it's not actually a criticism. You need to read up on the motives of the attacker of Paul Pelosi, the ones that he admitted to. He believed that the 2020 election had been stolen. He was into QAnon and Pizzagate and other far-right conspiracies. He wanted to take Nancy Pelosi hostage as the, quotes, leader of the pack of lies told by the Democrat Party. So possibly Charlie Kirk was being disingenuous when he insisted that you shouldn't make generalizations about that criminal's motivations based upon the broader political context, which was known, or is at least known now, whereas, of course, his own killer's politics is not known, which hasn't stopped anybody from, really, except us today, from reacting as if it was a given. And this is, I think, a really interesting moment. So we now know that Charlie Kirk was in the business of telling his viewers and listeners that Democrat politicians were admitted openly that they were trying to ship loads and loads of dark-skinned people into the country in order to replace the white population. He was very much an espouser of the racist conspiracy theory known as the Great Replacement Theory. And there is a Democrat politician in Pennsylvania who has just announced, and I've double-checked this, it's definitely real, that they will be flying the Commonwealth's flag at half-mast or half-staff, I think they call it in the States, in memory of Charlie Kirk. So he was telling his supporters that politicians like Governor Josh Shapiro, like him, not him specifically, were deliberately trying to replace white Americans with foreign-born people more likely to vote Democrat. And it just takes us back to Jack and Aberystwyth's comments about the relationship between empathy, decency and weakness. You now have a Democrat politician flying flags at half-mast for a man who told lies about Democrat politicians. Really dangerous, deeply divisive lies, insightful lies about Democrat politicians. It's as if they are trying so hard to disprove the lies being told about them that they end up becoming part of the problem, not part of the solution. I don't know what the answer to that is. It's probably the biggest political question of our age, but that is what is going to happen in Pennsylvania, as at the behest of a Democrat politician who almost certainly doesn't believe that black women don't have the brain processing power to be taken seriously, or that victims of rape should be forced to go full term and give birth to their rapist babies, or that the skin colour of a pilot should affect your confidence when you're on an aeroplane, or that Taylor Swift should submit to her husband, or that there is a sort of biblical justification for stoning gay people to death, and yet there he is. 11:57 is the time. Mystery hour around the corner, 0345 6060 973 to book your space on that switchboard. But before that, Phil is in St Helens. Phil, what made you pick up the phone?
Well, I definitely didn't think... Thanks for having me on, by the way.
You're very welcome.
I definitely think I didn't think I'd be phoning in regarding this, even though I have thought about phoning in quite a few times. Charlie Kirk, right, I disagreed with much of what he says in the past. He was even evangelical Christian. I'm quite the anti-theist.
Okay.
So I would disagree. I disagree with absolutely everything. And I think a lot of his views were motivated by his religious belief. His daughter being raped and giving birth. I think he would have gone through with that because of his religious beliefs.
Sure.
Now, I disagree with a lot of what he said, but he did make some common sense arguments regarding men competing in women's sports, things like wokeism, which I am against. I think
What is it?
Wokeism?
Yeah.
Well, it started off with good intentions. It was.
But what is it?
What is wokeism?
Yeah.
Is it original meaning or what it means now?
What you think it means?
Well,
the thing he was opposed to. And you've already mentioned transgender people, so we can't use that again.
Yeah, well, it's obviously I don't agree with men competing in biological men.
No, we've just said you've already said that. So when you add, so it was the transgender stuff and also wokeism. So what's wokeism?
Right, original meaning of wokeism.
No. I know the original meaning. The thing you're opposed to.
The thing that I'm opposed to is it puts people into groups.
Yeah, what is it?
Wokeism. It puts people into groups and does not treat them as individuals.
Like who? Which people?
Religious minorities, ethnic minorities.
You're against religious minorities?
No, that's not what I said. I said it puts people into groups.
Evangelical Christians you're against?
You could argue that.
You said it?
I'm sure. Yeah.
You put them into that group yourself just then?
Yes, well, in this country...
So that doesn't work. So what else does wokeism mean?
It does work. It does. I mean, they...
So you're against the thing you did when you put all evangelical Christians in a group?
No, it puts people into groups.
Yeah, like evangelical Christians, but you're in favour of doing that because you just did it. So what else does wokeism mean?
Yeah, and in those groups...
hang on, I'm not... I mean, you can hear me. What does it mean, wokeism?
Well, now it's. I'm trying to explain what it means.
Yeah,
it's divisive. It no longer. It makes people resent.
That's an adjective, not a noun. You can't just say it's this, it's that. What is it? I'm
trying to explain. It's not. I can only explain it through what I'm saying.
Yeah,
that's what it's become. I can't. Words migrate. So people are put into groups, and in those groups they're made to feel oppressed, whether it's religious minorities...
Like evangelical Christians?
Well, you can argue that if you want.
Well, I'm not arguing. I'm just pointing out you just did the thing that you claim to be opposed to, so that can't be the thing that you're opposed to, because you're in favour of it, because you just did it. So what is it that you're opposed to? What is the group you're really thinking of here that you feel is being unfairly maligned?
The groups in... just people are being treated... but not as individuals.
Which people?
My whole point of me phoning up really is because we've become so factionalised.
Yeah, but which people are treated as if they're not individuals?
People of religious minorities, and they're made to feel like they're oppressed even though they're not.
Which people?
Okay.
Which religious minority?
You could argue Muslims, Hindus, people of colour, people of transgenderism, gays. You know, we're all put into our little groups now.
So wokeism attacks them, does it?
No.
Right.
Wokeism
defends them.
Defends them and makes them feel like they're oppressed in some way.
What's wrong? Well, they are. You've just attacked evangelical Christians and transgender people in the space of this conversation. So they are being attacked. So how can you be opposed to defending them?
My point is, that you can attack. You're not attacking them, you're criticising, okay? There is people have the right to do or what they please, but when them beliefs start impacting other areas negatively,
how does that happen?
Biological men competing in women's sports.
We said from the start when we were talking about what wokeism was, we'd already chalked up transgender people, so we're not having that one. What else is left?
Okay, I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
Right, I'm quite outspoken in my anti-theism. I criticise Christianity and Islam in equal measure, but I could criticise Christianity all day long, and I don't get pushback. I get
it's the Muslims. We're too nice to Muslims.
When I criticise Islam, I don't criticise Muslims. I criticise the ideology.
Okay,
that's a distinct difference.
Yeah.
And I do not get the pushback from the left.
And who pushes back against you when you do that?
Yeah, well, if I criticise Christianity...
No, who pushes back against you?
Well, it is mainly people on the left.
But who? So, where are you doing this?
I'm doing this on open mic TikTok debates in the street.
So you're doing deliberate public provocation, and you're complaining about the provocation being successful.
I'm complaining that I do not.
Why would you be left if people didn't push back? You'd have absolutely no grift at all.
Yeah,
would
but
you?
I don't understand why I do not get the criticism. But I do not get the pushback when I criticise Christianity.
Well, you're going to the wrong places. Go to Charlie Kirk's heartlands. Go to the United States of America and stand outside the Westboro Baptist Church and try and do it there.
If I was an American, I would. But I'm not. But
there's probably places in this country that you could do it. Go and shout at people standing outside abortion clinics.
If I had the time, I would, but I'm a full-time working person.
Hang on, I thought you were doing on open mic TikToks all the time.
Yes.
Go and do it outside an abortion clinic where people are citing their Christianity as a reason why. Because the people like J.D. Vance think they're on the same side as you. They're anti-woke, but they're in favour of people using their religion to intimidate young women outside family planning clinics.
That makes me quite ideologically
homeless. Get out there, mate. Take the fight to them. Seriously. But let's stop calling it wokeism, shall we?
Well,
and call it anti-bigotry, which you've got a problem with, which I suppose leads us to one inevitable conclusion about what you're actually in favour of. And Mystery Hour was supposed to be next.
James O'Brien on LBC.
How many people have forgotten? You've just read. Also, we were quite late for the news on the last junction. So it is Mystery Hour. It's Thursday. It's 12 noon. It's your weekly opportunity to achieve the sort of satisfaction that is not available anywhere else on your radio dial. Just for the avoidance of doubt, you're not allowed to ask what wokeism is, because it never ends well when I ask that question, as our friend just discovered. But I want you to ask me whatever it is that you're currently puzzled by, the mystery, the riddle, the enigma that you are struggling with, a question to which you know there must be an answer. But you're dashed if you can work out what that answer is. And then somebody else listening to the programme will provide the answer, sometimes correctly, almost always correctly these days, sometimes incorrectly. And we will award rounds of applause accordingly. And indeed, we'll go further. My favourite contribution of the day will win a Mystery Hour board game, soon to be a collector's item, because it is to be superseded by Mystery Hour 2.0 later this year. Did you see that, Keith? How about that for timing? I brought that. Sounded like I'd almost planned it, didn't it? It just hit the final word, the final syllable, just as the music reached its conclusion. I have to remind you that the full terms and conditions for this actual competition, despite the fact that my decision is final and often quite whimsical, can be found at lbc.co.uk. And if you want to get your hands on a soon-to-be a collector's item original full-sized Mystery Hour board game, as opposed to the Mystery Hour board game Mark II, the tin edition, as nobody really has called it yet, then you can go to mysteryhour.co.uk and keep up to date with developments and find out everything that you want to find out. 9 minutes after 12 is the time. I think we should crack on straight away. If you want to get involved, 0345 6060973 is the number you need. Peter is in Enfield. Peter, question or answer?
Question, James. Good afternoon.
Carry on, Peter.
Thank you for our light-hearted afternoon hour. It's much appreciated.
We need it some weeks more than others, don't we?
We do. Bear with me here. Snorkeling Saplings.
That's the name of my first band.
Yeah, of course it is. I thought it might be. Very, very good. So why do we see trees planted, often by the council, I assume, with hoses sticking out of the ground next to them? I thought I knew the answer to this. I assumed I knew the answer to this, but my well-lived mother, to put it politely, has thrown a spanner in my thoughts and ideas.
Well, I now feel like, what's his name, Alan Davies on QI, because I'm about to say what you obviously previously thought the answer must be, and then the big sort of noise will go off in the background, because it's just a way of getting the water straight into the root ball.
Yes, I didn't think that. I thought the other way around.
What did you think?
I thought it was allowing air to stop root rot.
No, you watered that. You put the water down the snorkel, don't you, to get it directly to the root ball?
Yes, that could happen.
That must be it.
Must it?
Yeah, Occam's razor, innit?
Well, it's not Occam's razor, because surely air can go down there as well to stop root rot.
I think.
Why would a tree need?
History suggests that trees
getting water down it.
Trees have done all right over
They have.
the millennia without having snorkels to prevent root rot. But they do often die of underwatering.
It's possible.
It's not possible, plausible at least, Peter. Come on.
Yes, no, plausible.
Beyond plausible, probably almost definitely true. But I won't take the round of applause until someone better qualified than both of us provides us with the definitive answer.
That'd be fantastic. Thank you.
No, thank you. A tree outside my house died a couple of summers ago. It was terrible. It was a big old tree as well, and the replacement has indeed one of the little snorkels that Peter describes. I think it's more of a spout than a snorkel. But what are they for? And if the answer is, as I suspect, to water them, then just be gentle, all right, and be nice with your contribution. 11 minutes after 12 is the time. David is in Hendon. David, question or answer?
Question, please, James.
Carry on.
For my 4-year-old son, he asked me the other day, how do spiders know which web is theirs?
I like this. You've done something there which is a little bit cheeky. Because I sometimes get an indication of what the question is, what area the question is going to be in on my screen. And being, I'm only human, David, so I might prepare a little mockery, perhaps, or a little teasing. And then you open by saying the question has been asked by my 4-year-old son, which means that if I were to indulge in any mockery or teasing at all, I'd sound like an absolute cad.
That's the reason why I did it.
I know it is. I see you, mate. Don't you worry. I mean, they don't last very long, and I don't know that they ever leave them, do they?
Well, we have a few in our garden, and they do leave, and it does look like sometimes they do come back.
Okay.
And so,
can you squat? Can a spider squat a web? Is a variation on this question. I like this. Do you want to tell me your little boy's name? You don't have to, but if you listen back to it together later, he might enjoy the moment.
Yeah, his name is Sonny.
Sonny, OK, we get this one for him then. This is how does a spider know that it's... Well, maybe they leave the lights on. It's 13 minutes after 12. 0345 6060973 is the number that you need. Sean is in Chatham. Sean, question or answer?
The question.
Carry on.
Do colours affect our mood at all?
Yes.
And the reason...
That was the kind of response I was expecting from the first bloke, Peter, but he glossed over it immediately. Carry on, Sean.
I raised a question because years ago when I was in the army, we used to go out on squadded runs, and we either wore a red top or a white top. If anyone was in front of me with a white top, I was really enjoying myself, but if they wore a red top, it just really wound me up and it made me frustrated. And
really?
So that's my question. Yeah.
How
so I know there's the old balls going for the red cape, but I think that's a bit of a misnomer anyway, isn't it? They'll just go for anything that flutters in front of them.
I think that's right. Yes. Also, you're not a bull.
I've been called a few things, but no,
I'm sure you have, but that's science, that is. The reason I think that the answer is yes, and I'm sure it is yes, but again, as with every question pretty much, we'll wait for someone who knows more about it than I do to go definitive, is orange. Orange just makes you feel better about things. I'm pretty sure that when we were having our fertility treatment, they told us to fill the house with orange flowers and to make everything as orange as... I think orange calms you down. Orange is nice.
Well, that's fascinating.
Isn't it? I hope it's true. Yeah. I hope I haven't misremembered that or made it up. But I'm pretty sure orange... Yeah. And also, don't Hare Krishna wear orange? Don't they walk around in orange robes all the time? So
I believe they do.
They're always very chilled out, aren't they?
Yeah, not red.
Definitely not red. I don't know. Some of the cardinals in Rome wear red, but you're right. It's not a very soothing colour. I like that. Who will know the answer? I'm not sure, but someone will, and they will ring in and tell us. Sean, thank you. 0345 6060 973. You know what you should have done?
What's that?
You should have overtaken all the fellas wearing red until you found yourself slotted in behind someone wearing white, and then you'd have been a lot more fun to be around.
I wish I do that at the
time. 2020 hindsight is a wonderful thing.
James O'Brien on LBC.
It is 17 minutes after 12. You are listening to James O'Brien on LBC, where Mystery Hour is underway. So far, do colours affect our moods? How do spiders know which is their own web? And can we get this one out of the way quite quickly? What are those sort of plastic tubes next to newly planted trees for? I know, but Peter's question was valid and his reasoning was sound. So I just want to get that one. I'm presuming that I'm not being previous when I suggest the answer's quite obvious. Let's get that one ticked off nice and early. And obviously, many of you, who'd have thought Mystery Hour could become politically controversial? But obviously, there are some parts of the United Kingdom where orange is not necessarily a very soothing or welcome colour. Some parts of the United States political spectrum as well where orange isn't necessarily a very... But that's what I'm sure I was told, that orange was a nice and soothing colour. I could be wrong. I'm sure I was. But anyway, Sean knew that when he was on manoeuvres as a military man, if he found himself... running behind someone in red, his mood was bad. If he's running behind someone in white, his mood was good. So what else? What do we know about the relationship between colours and mood? Mike's in Marlow. Mike, question or answer?
It's a question, James.
Carry on, Michael.
The back pockets on jeans.
Oh, yes.
All right. Now they obviously start small with kids and they go up through the ladies' versions and then get into the men's.
Yeah.
But when you get up to the man size with a monstrous derriere, is there a maximum size? Because I saw a chap, an American chap, pouring himself into a Porsche one day, and I did notice that the distance between the back pockets was monstrous. So
you presume the pockets stay the same. The pockets stay the same size even as the jeans expand exponentially. Particularly, it sometimes seems for our American cousins. I don't know why you phoned Mystery Hour with this. You could have just gone to TK Maxx.
Somebody will know, surely.
Yes. Do the pockets stay the same once you reach, I don't know, say 32,
a maximum size,
34?
Yeah, maximum size.
The pockets on a 34 or 36 inch pair of jeans will be the same as they are on a 44 or a 40. Do you know, oddly, I like that question. I mean, it's got no business being asked on the radio, really, has it? But I do.
I've tried several times to get it through.
There you go. If at first you don't succeed, try again. So, I mean, it's quite easy to establish. I was only joking. I wasn't even joking when I said you could just go to TK Maxx. They've got acres of jeans in the average branch. But I want someone who knows from the inside whether or not it's true that they either stay the same size or don't. Lawrence is in Blandford in Dorset. Lawrence, question or answer? Didn't Michael have a lovely? Didn't he have a lovely giggle?
It was fantastic, wasn't it? Yeah, I only heard it over the phone because I turned the radio off.
Well done. Exactly as Eleanor told you to do. Have you got a question or an answer for me?
I've got an answer, James.
Excellent.
And, so first time caller, very long time listener. So
Thank
great
you.
to talk to you.
Likewise.
Anyway, it's the answer with regards to the hose or the pipe going down into the trees.
Yes.
And more commonly, sort of recently planted trees, and they sometimes, get lost over a period of time. The solar pipe is fitted at the time that the tree is planted in order to get water directly down to the root ball.
Yes.
So the corrugated pipe, and it has lots of small holes in it that allow you to, so you basically fill from a bowser or water container into
it's a terrible phone line. It sounds like you're sort of falling down a pipe yourself at the moment. But
hang on.
So it's not.
Is that better?
It is actually, yeah. So it's not just a pipe. It's got features. It's a pipe with features.
It is indeed, yeah. So it's obviously permeable because the water has to flow down the pipe and then it has to basically flow around the root ball or the root system of the newly planted tree. And
that'll do. That's brilliantly done. Qualifications?
And I was a tree surgeon, then a council tree officer, and now a tree consultant.
Wow, you're branching out.
Yeah. Nice one.
Thank you. Have a round of applause. I didn't think you were going to twig that, Lawrence. It's 21 minutes after 12. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. Gary's in Thetford, where there are a lot of trees. There's a coincidence, Gary, eh? Question or answer?
Yeah, I've got a question.
Carry on.
Are barcodes reused?
Why do you want to know?
Because I buy records online.
Oh, yeah.
I use the packaging to send records out. I want to know if after 6 months that barcode is then regenerated somewhere else, and if I use the packaging and don't cross out the barcode, will that end up somewhere else? or will it come up as a tin of tuna?
I mean, that could get you into all sorts of trouble. I think barcodes are unique, aren't they, actually?
Well, that's what I'm asking.
I know it is. I'm just chewing the fat. I'm just making, I'm just being polite. I'm making I think that they are unique, but so how do we phrase the question? There it is, just simply, are they reused?
Are they reused?
I like it. What sort of records do you buy, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh, very, very alternative music mostly. I'm a big Cure fan.
Okay.
Big Wedding Presents fan.
Sisters of Mercy?
Not so much. Maybe Shambles, Libertine.
Oh, okay. Bang up to date.
I'm just a couple of years older than you, so yeah.
Have you checked out Wonder Horse?
I haven't.
Well, there you go. That's my tip for today.
Right.
With a U. Wonder Horse with a U. It's not, I mean, I don't know if they'd be described as alternative, but given what you just told me you liked, I'd be surprised if you didn't like them. And you can let me know. And I will also let you know hopefully someone will let you know whether or not barcodes can indeed be reused. It's 23 minutes after 12. We've done the snorkels question. Thanks to Lawrence. Still got the spiders question for Sonny. We've got the, I can't read my own writing, the colours question from Sean, the jeans pockets question from Mike, and the barcodes question for Gary. Adam's in Camberley. Adam, question or answer?
I've got a question, please, James.
Carry on.
So, I've been walking around, at this time of year, you walk around outside and you see acorn trees.
Acorn trees?
Acorn trees. It's the time of year when they start...
They're not called acorn trees.
Oh, aren't they? Oh, God, it was a bad start already.
What do you mean acorn trees?
The ones that drop acorns. Those are the ones
oak trees, man.
Oh, oak trees, okay.
Oh,
well,
acorn tree. Acorn trees is quite sweet, actually. That's a little acorn tree. Go on.
They must drop their acorns to obviously how they spread themselves around. I'm forgetting the word now, but how they sort of multiply.
Yeah.
But what I want to know is why the amount of acorns they drop. Why is there not millions and millions of oak trees about? And why isn't there one next to the other? And then because they drop so many, you would have thought they just pollinate over and over again, and you would assume there's a massive influx of them.
Well,
you know what I mean?
I do like that question, and I do understand it as well. I mean, there are some obvious answers, and it's interesting that you focus on acorns, because theoretically you could just say, why is the whole world not covered in trees?
I'll tell you what I was doing. I was just doing a job at someone's house, and literally every 2 seconds you could hear an acorn drop off this tree, and I thought, this letting go of so many, why over the previous years hasn't it already made one next to it?
Why aren't there millions of oak trees around this guy? Well, in the New Forest, I don't know if you knew this, they release the pigs once a year to eat up all the acorns because they can be poisonous to the horses. So part of the answer will be eating. There'll be creatures that are eating the acorns.
Oh, that's so limited though, isn't it?
Well, not necessarily. Squirrels?
I mean, squirrels, yeah, we'd have some fat, chunky squirrels though, wouldn't we, if they're all of them?
I wonder if the pockets on their jeans stay the same size, even when they go up a few sizes.
Well, it depends if they're American or English as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's true. I don't know how you spot an American squirrel. But no, you underestimate the power of the squirrel, frankly, Adam. You've been a bit dismissive. There are a lot of squirrels, and they hoard acorns. This is a well-known fact about squirrels. They hoard stuff, so they'll be collecting a lot of them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that might be, you might not like it, but that might be the main part of the answer.
Well, the thing is, it's the sheer amount of them. You go near an oak tree or stand underneath it at this time of year, your foot's barely even touching the floor.
Well, I've got damsons in the same. I'm having the same issue with damsons at the moment. I try to go every morning and every evening to collect the ones that have fallen before they start to perish. I should be picking some, but they're quite high up now. I've picked all the low-hanging fruit. It's a bit like my radio show. I've picked all the low-hanging fruit, and now I'm waiting for the higher ones to fall. And I've only got one damson tree in my garden, and under your reading of botany, I should have about 700 already.
Exactly.
What do you mean exactly? But I don't.
Be everywhere.
Well, jays eat them as well. Birds probably enjoy an acorn. Some big birds.
The thing what I heard is that deer like to eat oak saplings as well. So is it the deer that are going around destroying all our brand new trees?
Not in Camberley. I wouldn't have thought.
Well, it's actually a lovely area, Camberley.
Sure it is. It's just not known for its deer.
Oh, it's known for its oak trees, though.
Well, there you go. All right. Why aren't there more oak trees or acorn trees, as they will forever be known?
Amazing.
What happens to all the acorns? What happens to all the acorns? 27 minutes after 12. I've actually got an oak tree in a tub. We have grown one from an acorn. And the plan is that one day, if they ever leave home, one of my daughters will take it with them. Sarah is in Hadley. Sarah, question or answer?
Question, please.
Carry on, Sarah.
If you've got spare damsons, I'd like to have them because I like making jam.
They're not really spare. I'm on a sort of hiding to nothing, really, with the damsons because I eat them. They're nice. I put them in my overnight oats as well. But I don't... that crucial moment, I almost need a net under my tree to catch them. But anyway, we digress, Sarah. We digress.
Yeah. Can you tell me who names prescription pills and drugs and stuff? Because they are so complicated.
John does that. Yeah. John Rogers.
I beg your pardon?
John Rogers.
Who's John Rogers?
He's the bloke that names all the pills and the medicines.
Why? What are the names based on, then?
Well, you'd have to ask John Rogers. What is the purpose of your question, madam?
I want to know who makes the prescription, who names these drugs.
But why?
Why? Because they're so complicated, much easier if they were easier to pronounce.
Yes, this is very true. So you mean, do you have any personal favourites that you would to give us an example of a ludicrously named drug?
I can't at the moment, no.
No. So what would you prefer them to be called?
Well, something that's pronounceable.
Like John Rogers.
Yeah, that'll do.
Well, they probably have to be given really distinctive names, don't they? And that involves complication.
But some of them are very, very, very long.
Yes, they are.
And there must be a reason why they're so long and how many components there are to make up the name.
Well, that probably tells you exactly what's in it. I don't know why I'm speculating on this one. I haven't got a Scooby-Doo, but it probably tells you exactly what's in it. So it's not for our purpose. They're not named for us, the patients. They're named for the healthcare professionals.
Okay.
I don't know.
Best find a healthcare professional to ask.
Hopefully John Rogers will ring in. He'll get a Ray Liotta all day long. Thank you, Sarah. 0345 6060 973 is the number that you need. So we got the spiders, the colours, the genes, the barcodes, the oaks, and the medicament. But the sesquipedalian, here you go, special prize for anyone who knows what the heck this involves. The sesquipedalian nature of pharmaceutical nomenclature. Go on, stick that on a T-shirt. I think I may be misusing the word sesquipedalian, but I don't think I am. The sesquipedalian nature of pharmaceutical nomenclature, which is not a Gilbert and Sullivan lyric. But Thomas Watts is here with your headlines.
James O'Brien on LBC.
It's 12:33. Mystery Hour is well underway, and if you are jonesing for more news, then I can absolutely guarantee that Sheila and Tom and everybody else on the schedule will be returning to the stories of Peter Mandelson and Charlie Kirk throughout the day and much of the night, I suspect, on LBC. It is 12:33. We're indulging in a little bit of light relief until 1 o'clock, which I'm sure you do not begrudge, and you may even enjoy. Sean is in Long Melford. Sean, question or answer?
It's an answer, James.
Carry on, Sean.
In response to the question about the jeans pockets, I can confirm that they stay the same, but the actual size of the pocket will vary between manufacturer.
But once you're in adult male jeans, the pockets are the same size on every single waist size.
Yeah, so basically, I'm stood in my shop, which is a menswear shop in Long Melford. You and I have spoken before, by the way.
Hall Street. Is it Hall Street Menswear?
Hall Street Menswear in Long Melford, yeah. Interesting enough, the lady that just phoned up about the medicine names...
We're just going to leave that, are we?
No, I'm just going to... Cross-reference, she said she was in Hadley. And that was where I used to have my other shop in Hadley, and I wondered, there we are. Anyway.
But aren't you... we're just going to gloss over the fact I just named your shop live on national radio without you giving me any clues at all, except the fact that it's in
Did you say Hall Street Menswear and Ladies Wear in Long Melford?
Yeah.
Oh, right, lovely. Okay, thanks.
Is that it?
Aren't
you a bit freaked out by my spooky psycho skills?
No, you probably got it on the system in front of you, haven't you, James?
Yeah, all right, carry on.
Anyway, the answer I was going to give is that it will fall down. If I'm being cynical about the manufacturing process, like most things in this world these days, it will be down to cost. So essentially what will happen is each manufacturer will have a standard design of pocket, which will be a bit like a signature in many respects.
Yeah, I like it, because it's got the stitching on it as well, hasn't it?
In essence, and also the shape and all that sort of thing. So if you look at certain brands, I mean, I've got brands here, jeans which are from Germany, France, Australia, and American for that matter, that I'm looking at, and I've literally just gone round and measured them, and they vary in width, but they don't vary between sizes of the same style of jeans.
You've got some lovely kit in, mate. I'm just working my way through your website at the moment. I say you've got a real eye for quality.
But yeah.
No, I grant you that. What's the biggest pair of jeans you've got in the shop? This is how's my career.
I've got 42 waist at the moment.
That's not that big, is it? 42?
Yeah, it's pretty big. I mean, on average, 32 to 38 is your average.
Yeah, but I mean,
UK
I was going to say 38, the upper limit for average, and then 42 is only two sizes up from that. I'm pretty sure they go. What did I used to go?
They'll go 50. Up to 50 and all that sort of stuff. But you are talking, to put it politely, you're talking about, probably more about our American cousins.
It's not your kind of customer. So when I was in menswear, I think the biggest, the suits would have a 6-inch drop, wouldn't they, from chest to waist, and the biggest we sold was actually, I think we had some 50s, but generally 48 was the biggest, which means the biggest trousers that I sold in my menswear days would have been 42s. Yeah, you're exactly right. I love it.
I mean, you just when you talk about the rise of the trousers, as well as you've just sort of alluded to another part, which is, I don't know if you know this, but you've got YKK jeeps, zips, should I say, which are the standard.
Yes.
And a few years ago, I always get this round the wrong way. It either went from 8 to 7 or 7 to 6. I forget now. But basically, because of obviously production costs, someone came up with the idea of standardising it. So that's why a lot of people struggle, or men struggle these days with the zips, because they're not as long as they used to be to accommodate the face, if that makes sense.
Well, of course it does, and I would encourage ladies of a gentle disposition to avert their ears for a moment, but that's why there's been an increasing incidence of men at the urinals who undo the whole kit and caboodle, don't they? They undo the belt and the top button and everything. I'm sure that didn't used to happen when I was younger.
No, but that probably does, yes.
Tie in with the shorter zip.
You just said.
God, this is almost philosophy now, this, on the programme. I have to ask you...
everything.
Yeah, of course there is, and it's usually money. Although I don't think your conspiracy theory about pocket sizes works, because why would a particularly overweight person need a bigger pocket? He's not going to have a bigger wallet, is he?
No, when I said it would be about costs, it's down to the manufacturing process. That's what I meant.
Oh, okay. So it might look better to have pockets that were to scale, but it would cost a lot more to be building bigger pocket. You just do all the pockets on one.
So if you imagine, obviously, in a production line where these jeans are being manufactured, you'll have the material which they'll obviously carve up or cut up into the shape of the legs, which then obviously will stack together, and then basically there'll be a load of pre-cut pockets, which they will then just obviously slap onto the bum part of the...
Beautifully done.
A
lot of technical terms there as well, Sean. I know the answer to this question, but we have to abide by the rules. What are your qualifications?
I've been working in menswear for the last 13 years.
That'll do nicely. What a cup of tea for anyone who comes in and mentions Mystery Hour today into Hall Street Classic and Country Lifestyle Clothing.
We're always very accommodating, but yeah, a cup of tea and a hug, maybe.
A round of applause for Sean in Long Melford. Lovely stuff. There's some lovely kit on there. It is 12:30. You can tell, can't you, that I'm not even pretending. I'm not even remotely exaggerating when I talk about how my enthusiasm for working in menswear is undimmed 30 years after I measured my last inside leg. If I hadn't finally managed to persuade somebody in this industry to give me some paid work, I probably would have stayed in retail, and I would have loved it. I don't know why. I've just always had a passion for it. I could talk to Sean all day, but I better not. Stephen's in Nebworth. Stephen, question or answer?
It's an answer. It's an answer to the jeans question.
Oh, dear. Not a steward's inquiry, is it?
It is a steward's inquiry, yeah.
Oh, go on then.
Okay. I've been in the fashion trade. I'm a pattern cutter and a grader since I was 16 years old.
Yes.
And you normally, when you grade anything up, it's normally, it's like taking a picture and blowing it up into proportion. So they always grade the pocket sizes. Now, the argument that he was saying about the cloth, etc., in Malay, is incorrect, because if you can imagine having a size 10 garment and a size 12 garment, a size 14 garment, the increments between them are 5 centimetres.
Yes.
So you can put a 10 and a 14 together, and it would be the same costing as the 12. So it doesn't make any difference how big you make the pocket.
On jeans, I think it would be different. I mean, you're talking about dresses.
Well, I'm not. I'm talking about anything. I mean,
really?
I regraded jeans, trousers. You would grade the pocket. The pocket at the front gets bigger. A welt pocket would get bigger. You would do it in proportion. There's no way you could have a large.
But you've never done it.
18 I've never done it. I have done it, yeah.
Not on back. No, the back pockets specifically. The back pockets of jeans.
The back pockets of jeans would get bigger in proportion. Why not? The hands are getting bigger. So to put your hand in, it has to get bigger. If you were grading it correctly, everything has to be in proportion.
You both sound incredibly persuasive. The only thing we could do, we should all meet up in TK Maxx later.
Well, just because a manufacturer hasn't done it, but doesn't mean to say that it's right or wrong. Or other Levi's probably do it.
I don't think they do, mate. I honestly don't think they do. I mean, he's just literally stood in his shop, in his actual shop, and he's got a 42 and a 32, and he's measured the back pockets, and they're the same size.
Maybe he's got bad garments that come in. Maybe
I can't say that about crikey.
No, well, not theoretically, if you're grading any sort of pattern, it's basically growing it.
I think this is possibly a unique example of cognitive dissonance on Mystery Hour, because you're both saying contradictory things, and oddly, I believe you both.
Oh, good.
So I'll give you a round of applause.
Okay, thank you very much.
But I'm not withdrawing Sean's.
Okay, fine.
See you later. Scott's in Norwich. Scott, question or answer?
Question.
Carry on.
So my beautiful girlfriend and I went to see the band James.
Where?
A few weeks ago.
Where?
And Colchester Castle.
Seriously?
Yeah.
How many weeks ago?
Oh, back end of August.
Was it a festival?
Kind of, yeah.
Okay, carry on. Sorry, I love James. They're one of my all-time favourite bands, and I'm often trying to keep up to date with concert tours, but I don't really like festivals. So I was just thinking I couldn't have missed it, could I? But it was a festival that you were at, and I want to go. Do you know where they played recently? You probably know this. Or it may have just been Tim. They played at the Acropolis.
I did see that,
in
yes.
Greece.
Yeah.
I'd have loved to have gone to that. It would have been incredible. Anyway, sorry, we digress. Question or answer? Question.
I'm glad you're a fan, because you've already name-dropped Cure and Sisters of Mercy, etc.
Yes, so a huge fan of James, actually. Probably, but yeah, probably. They may well be one of the bands that comes around most often, top 5 on Spotify, I reckon. But anyway, so where were we? There you were, at a James concert.
Back screen, big stage, band on stage, back screen. Big Daisy, you'll be familiar with the logo.
Of course, yeah. It's on a T-shirt.
The Daisy filled the screen at the back of the stage.
Yeah.
And then halfway through the song, it comes out. So it goes from 2D to 3D. And it can't be an optical illusion, because the tips of the Daisy petals were bigger than the screen. As it came out, it got bigger.
Wow.
How did they do that?
I need to ask the next question very carefully.
I'm sober.
Are you 100% sure about that in every way?
Absolutely.
You're 100% sure? You had a little bit of a dabble?
Not at all. No, we don't drink at gigs, and we get sick of people who do.
Okay. I wasn't necessarily thinking about alcohol, but we'll leave it there. Could it have been lasers?
Oh, no, there was no other influence.
Good. Lasers?
No.
Could it? I think it might have been lasers. They might do it with lasers.
I don't know.
So how do they flick? Someone flicked a switch, and it went from 2D to 3D in that moment.
Yeah.
I love
this.
this.
A technological reason why. Yeah. How did they do that? And I was just transfixed by it. That's amazing.
Yeah. I bet. Are you okay? I bet you were. I love that. Which song was it? Can you remember?
Oh, I can't remember. Okay. I'd have to Google a set list.
That's all right. I'll find out for you, or at least I hope I will find out for you. How do they do that? Flick a switch and an image on a screen goes from 2D to 3D in a concert environment. Lovely stuff. Thank you, Scott. It's coming up to 12:45. You're listening to Mystery Hour with James O'Brien on LBC.
James O'Brien on LBC.
47 is the time. A lot of love for James, not me, the band coming in, and Tim Booth, the lead singer, but I think John Wins, who's got the daisy, the insignia, on the side of his van and has sent me a picture. That's lovely. And he says he was at Colchester and the track being played at the time was Shadow of a Giant. I presume at different gigs, if they've got the kit with them, they can play it, they can do the thing with the 3D daisy at different points at different times. But hey-ho, it's on the board. Lewis is in Putney. Lewis, question or answer?
Answer, James.
Carry on, Lewis. Is it the pharmaceuticals question?
It is. Your intuition is in.
See, look at this. I'm hitting it out of the park today. Go on. Why do drug names have to be so long, and who names them?
So it's a two-part answer, technically. Well, it is a two-part answer. So basically, all drugs, when they're under patent, have a patented name by said drug company. But after that patent expires, they become a generic, and anyone can make them, any pharmaceutical manufacturer. But then it's purely named on, then it's no longer a brand name. It will be based on the molecule or the API, the active pharmaceutical ingredient. And that molecule is the molecular name. So when I was at uni, we had to do chemistry. We got given a molecule name, and you then have to write out on paper what it is, the shape and all the bonds and things. And so basically, when they're saying something, it's a bit like ibuprofen and Nurofen. Nurofen being the branded name and ibuprofen being the generic name.
Sure. So
basically, the complex ones is just because that's its molecular name.
They can't get away from it. It has to be in the title. That's the law.
Yeah. It's pharmaceutical law.
So there's no way you could just call it, like, I don't know, Bubbles or something like that.
Well, it's a bit, yeah, exactly. But it's like how pretty much all antibiotics now, you just have their name as well, but that's for medical use as well.
Qualifications?
So I've worked in the pharmaceutical industry for almost 20 years.
Holy moly, I thought you were younger than that. Have a round of applause, Lewis.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So the 2D, 3D thing, we've done the medications. Where do all the acorns go? Why aren't there loads more oak trees and indeed other kinds of trees around? Done the snorkels. Do spiders, can we find out? Usually spiders' questions get answered quite quickly. How do spiders know it's their own web? 0345 606 0973. Do colours affect our moods? Come on. Are barcodes unique or do they get reused? We've done the gene pockets. And now we've got the 2D, 3D question to add to the mix as well. Another quick question from Darren in Scarborough. Darren, question or answer?
James, absolute pleasure to speak to you, sir. And it's a question.
Yes.
Nervous. I know it's only you, but
thank you. Well done.
There we go.
Yeah.
Right. Why is it? It doesn't matter how big, how small a piece of paper is, and I bet the majority of your listeners are going to try this. How big or how small a piece of paper is, it can only be folded 8 times.
It's physics.
Say again?
Physics, mate.
Is it?
Yeah, must be.
Well, have you tried it?
No, yeah, I have actually. I mean, it is one of those things that you can't quite believe that isn't known to everybody, but some people listening to this, you're absolutely right, will never have come across this fact before. And it doesn't, and what's interesting about it is that you could find an absolutely enormous piece of paper, like the size of, that covers your entire floor, which you would think you'd be able to fold loads more than a piece of A4 paper, but you
Exactly.
can't.
But why is it? It can't be just physics.
Because it's going to be much... Yeah, I know, I like it. I mean, it's a bit late in the day to get a question like this on, but it should be relatively...
Can I ask it again next Thursday, then?
It doesn't really... I can't be making special exemptions. No repetitions. No repetitions allowed, Darren, you know that. Otherwise it would just, everything would start falling apart. But hopefully someone will go, how come you can only fold, no matter what size the piece of paper is, how come you can only fold it 8 times? How did James get their daisy to go from 2D to 3D at the flick of a switch? And all the other questions I reminded you of a moment ago. Carl is in Warrington. Carl, question or answer?
It's an answer, James.
Carry on, Carl.
So, barcodes.
Yes.
Right. Barcodes are a unique piece of information. They cannot be used again officially.
Oh.
However,
there's not a black market in barcodes, Carl, surely.
There is a sales market in barcodes.
Tell me more.
So this is how you get a barcode. You apply to the official UK barcode registry, if you like. There's a company called GS1, not for profit. And what that does is it gives you unique barcodes that have never been used before, and they become your property. So, can you use them again? Yes. I mean, your jeans manufacturer with large pockets could theoretically put a barcode on his large jeans and have the very same barcode used in the warehouse for a stock location, for example. But that's his property. He can do with that what he wants. He can theoretically reuse that. However, technology is changing. I was involved in the very early rollouts of barcodes onto shipping labels, for example, and that was a direct replacement of the barcode, because barcode will come to an end at some point. There are only a certain amount of barcodes.
Okay.
But the QR code is totally universal. There can be many billions of different variations.
So QRs will replace barcodes eventually. So I'm just a little unclear on... So I buy a barcode and I can then sell it to someone else?
You could do, but that person could probably get that cheaper by going directly to GS1 and buying the barcodes direct from the official supplier in the UK.
So the question being, can you reuse them, is no, you can't, but you kind of can.
Not officially. Once they're your property, you can use them in as many different locations as you wish. So, yes, you can. The answer is yes, you can reuse them, but officially you cannot.
But only on the same thing. You can't, like, if I've got them on, I bought them for my jeans, I can't then stick it on a tin of tuna 10 years later.
Quite right.
No.
You would risk then coming across the problem of scanning the barcode and having two pieces of
complete misrepresentation.
Absolutely.
Qualifications?
Former director at the Royal Mail and involved in QR codes rollout across click and drop and downloads of labels, etc.
Pretty well qualified. I didn't know we'd get such a well qualified one on this. Beautifully done. Thank you, Carl.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. 12:54 is the time. Chloe is in Tunbridge Wells. Chloe, question or answer?
Hi, answer for the James concert.
Oh, yes.
For Daisy. So they're basically just using pixel mapping. So it's an illusion. So what they would have first had was they'd have animated to a slightly smaller screen size.
Yeah.
And then that would have enlarged. So it just basically has the illusion that it's popping out, but it's just the mapping of the LEDs on the screen.
So the two-dimensional image is expanding in a way that makes our eyes think that it's coming out towards us.
Exactly. They would have made the screen look smaller for the 2D version.
Wow.
And then that screen size would have expanded so that it's like, oh, it's actually coming out of the screen. Like they would have just had the petals coming out of the original screen size.
Qualifications?
I work in live visuals.
Well, that'll do. So you literally do this kind of thing?
Exactly that, yeah.
You didn't work on this gig?
I didn't, unfortunately, no.
If you did, you'd have got a Ray Liotta. As it is, you get a round of applause. Thank you, Chloe. Ivan is in King's Cross. Ivan, question or answer?
It's an answer, James.
Carry on.
The colour affecting moods, it absolutely does, yes.
Tell me more.
So colour and light are inseparable. You can't have one without the other, and light is fundamental to our survival. So in terms of evolutionary psychology, presence of light is a good thing for us. That means that we're going to be able to survive. Warmer colours generally mean more favourable conditions.
Because the original question from Sean, it was red that made him feel uncomfortable. Well, I think of that as quite a warm colour. But, I mean, he might just be weird.
But then it's an extreme. There's a certain degree of relativity to it as well. So if you're somewhere really, really hot, then a cooler colour may seem desirable to you. Think about, I don't know, I was in Jaipur and there was a marble colonnade and the light in there was significantly cooler and bluer, and that went very desirable.
Oh, and he's running, so he's probably suffering a bit. Therefore, the red is going to make him feel worse, and the white T-shirt is going to make him feel chill and cool and nice. And orange, which I suggested was probably the holy grail of colours when it comes to general equilibrium, is both warm and not extreme.
Yeah, exactly. It's sort of optimum. Yeah. But then, of course, we can have, subjective associations with it. If there's somebody that you've been looking at who's particularly orange that you don't like, maybe you have an individual negative association with it.
Perish the thought. Qualifications, Ivan?
I'm a photographer.
That'll do. And that gets you a round of applause.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. 12:57 nearly. Joanne's in Ash in Kent. Joanne, question or answer?
It's an answer, James.
Carry on.
It's the acorns.
Oh, yes.
Right, so, it's the squirrels that eat the acorns.
It is, isn't it? It's Occam's razor, that. It kind of has to be the squirrels.
It has to be the squirrels because the reason I know this is that I've had horses for a number of years we've got oak trees in our field. So what we do, every August, we put a temporary fencing around the canopy of the oak trees.
Quite a big job.
It is quite a big job, yes. It takes a few hours to do.
I bet.
And then, come October, when we take them all down, there are no acorns to pick up because all the squirrels have eaten the acorns.
So, I mean, he balked at the idea that the squirrels, Adam it was, who balked at the idea that the squirrels would be able to undertake such an extraordinary exercise. But the more you think about it, the more sense it makes. Of course they can.
Yeah, we got 3 oak trees in our field and there's no acorns there when we take the fencing down in October.
Which LBC presenter, Joanne, is on YouTube, appearing on a well-known television programme, eating a squirrel?
I have no idea.
It was me.
Eating a squirrel?
Yeah, it was me.
You're eating a squirrel?
I ate a squirrel, yeah. When I was presenting Newsnight. I've had a very odd life, Joanne. I don't know if that'll even get into the autobiography.
What was men's trousers?
Men's trousers and squirrels. We've been there. We've covered a lot today. Covered a lot of territory. Your qualifications are that you've got horses and oak trees.
Yes.
And a round of applause.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I don't know. Who am I going to give it to this week? Who gets the... I'll squeeze in Sam quickly. Sam, very quickly, question or answer?
Answer.
Go on.
So I'm going with the previous caller. The squirrels do probably damage most of the acorns, but they might not eat all of the acorns.
Oh, okay.
All of the acorns that you find that have then grown into trees, mostly, apart from ones that have fallen out of the trees, are planted by jays, Eurasian blue jays.
Oh, really?
Because they're delicate enough when they handle them that they don't actually damage the acorn, unlike the squirrel, who might also bury them elsewhere, but they damage them so much. And there you go.
Qualifications?
Gardener, horticulturalist.
A round of applause for Sam. I love it. What a lovely mystery. Whose giggle did I like? Who had the lovely giggle? Was it Mike? Was it Michael in the clothes shop? Can we listen to on Global Player? Can we rewind live radio and find out which caller it was who had a giggle that I really loved, and then send? And it was Sean in Long Melford, was it? No, Sean wasn't in Long. Was it? No, you can no, stop it. I want you to rewind live radio on the Global Player app or on the LBC app and find out who had the lovely giggle that everybody liked so much, and then we'll send that person. Right, I should hand over to Sheila very quickly. It's coming up to 1 o'clock. Tom Sawbrick will be with you at 4 on LBC, but Sheila Fogarty is with you now.
James O'Brien on LBC.